Hello. YouTube. Hello, 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 Schmall. Joel the Schmall. You gotta drive, you can't watch. Can't you just, like, tell the car to drive itself? Put it on cruise control. It should figure it out. What do you wear while you record these? Oh boy. What don't I wear? Nothing. Nothing at all. That's the best part about being a professional VTuber, is you can be naked the whole time while having a potato represent you. Just got diagnosed with Bell's palsy. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry to hear that. That's new? Man. This live stream has been Porcus approved. Thank you, Porcus. We've been waiting for you. The last few haven't been approved by you, and it's been slightly concerning. Star Wars stole my birthday thunder. Oh, that's right. Happy birthday, Geeky. I had a roommate in college who was May 4th. But I texted him like, I'm well out of college. But I remembered his birthday, and I texted him, like, I think a couple years ago, and he didn't respond. I'm going to text him right now. Happy birthday. That's all I'll say. If he doesn't respond, he's a bad person. And we will know the current status of our... We'll know that we'll never be roommates again. That's all you need to know. Guys, tonight's bonus content, by the way. Who's excited? You know, it's like kind of a less formal approach to a stream when it's bonus content. I don't take it quite as seriously. Joel Swollington. Did your power ever come back the other night? I never had power out, thankfully, but a lot of people around me were out. Thankfully, they are back up and running. I'm just genuinely concerned about now with that. That actually makes me want to ask. How vulnerable is the PMJ in Pennsylvania? We're going down a quick conspiracy rabbit hole. The Pennsylvania Municipal Judiciary or another local public justice or... No, wait. No, that's not right. Wait, what is it? No, the power source for PA and others. Oh, PJM. Duh, my bad. The PJM interconnection. The PJM interconnection is a regional transmission organization, an RTO that coordinates the movement of wholesale electricity across 13 states, including Pennsylvania and D.C. It ensures grid reliability and operates the largest and competitive wholesale electricity market in the U.S. How vulnerable is PJM, the PA grid? Cybersecurity vulnerability. PJM and other U.S. grids are frequently targets of cyber attacks, especially from foreign actors like China, Russia, and Iran. The grid relies on SCADA systems, supervisory control and data acquisition, which, if unpatched or improperly segmented, can be exploited. In 2023, the U.S. DOE warned of increasing AI-driven cyber threats targeting grid operations. Physical vulnerabilities. Substations, like the one attacked in North Carolina in 2022, are often lightly guarded and located in rural areas. PJM spans many such locations, and coordinated attacks could cripple portions of the grid. Weather vulnerability, which is what I thought was happening the other time. ice storms and snow that damage lines, heavy rain and flooding that impact substations, extreme heat stressing demand beyond supply. Renewable integration like solar and wind adds volatility with the inertia provided by fossil fuel plants. Without the inertia provided by fossil fuel plants, increasing the grid's fragility to sudden changes. Aging infrastructure, many of PA's transformers and transmission lines are decades old. Deferred maintenance and lack of redundancy can cause cascading failures like the 2003 blackout. I don't even remember a 2003 blackout. I wonder where that hit. Grid congestion capacity as demand grows and baseload plants retire. PJM is warned of supply shortages starting as early as 2027. Oh my god, bro. That's it. 2027 is going to be the year, guys. It's going to be the year. NERC, N-E-R-C, North American Electric Reliability Cooperation, listed part of PJM as an elevated risk for summer/winter reliability due to its mismatch. What is being done? PJM is investing in grid modernization, transmission upgrades, and AI-based forecasting. These movement toward more distributed energy resources, DERs, and battery shortages, but not fast enough to cover coal/nuclear retirements. Pennsylvania also participates in federal grid resilience programs, though funding is behind. Okay, I don't know. Solar flares, yeah, I guess that could be I mean, even if they just told you something was a solar flare, like, how would you ever know, you know? What's your birthday? Your birthday is exactly a month, Joel. Oh, that's true, yeah. What are we gonna do? What day of the week does it fall on? Sorry. June 4th is a Wednesday, which is a streaming night. Should we stream that night? Nobody's gonna be doing anything, probably. The sharks are eating our wires. We have to stop. We have to stop making our wires out of chum. Plans for Halloween. Oh man, that's thinking ahead. All you need to know is it's going to be nutso and butso. Am I a Gemini? I collect gems. How are you, bro? It's been a while since it's been on the shit. Yo, Kevin, what's up, dude? Nuts out, butts out. When you tuck your nuts between your butts. Do you do any combat sports, boxing, karate, MMA, taekwondo, etc.? I did jiu-jitsu for like a really brief period of time. But no, not anymore. Never got into it. But it would be fun. Of course, I really wouldn't want to take like repetitive blows to the head or, you know, get injured or something. That would just kind of feel pointless. Why do people hate Gemini so much? We were just silly. Because they're racist against us superior space people. 100 men versus one baby. The new Mr. Beast video. Please say happy birthday, Misha. Happy birthday, Misha. Where's that at? I thought it said Michigan for a second. Happy birthday, Michigan. 100 Geminis versus... one Gemini versus 1,000 gorillas. Put me in there. I think I'll figure it out. Honestly, if I was taking down one gorilla, I like have no doubt that the other grillers would not even care. They'd be, all of the rest of them would probably be just like grazing. I think that's one of our biggest advantages as humans, is that gorillas can't really plan ahead, whereas we can train for years really to take down a gorilla. All they have to do is sit there and eat their bamboo shoots. One baby versus one pit bull named Cupcake. When's my B day? When's my E day? My electronic day. My electronic birthday. The first day I signed into the net. AOL dial-up. Who are your favorite voice actors? Kevin Conroy, Stephen Bloom, etc. Yeah, you know, they're good. Who's the guy who played Gollum? He's a pretty amazing voice actor and actor in general. I mean, honestly, like, everybody kind of kicks some ass, you know? As long as they're not too annoying on Twitter, it's fine. Andy Serkis, that's right. Yeah, Andy Serkis is kind of nuts with it. I mean, they all are, really. Albert. Damn, it's crazy listening to live on a plane. What's up? Nice. Where you heading, Albert? Back to Hot Atlanta. Back to the strip club. Kevin Conroy was a legend. Yeah, dude. I mean, he was Batman to me as far as, you know, more so than all the live action Batmans. That animated Batman was my Batman. Got any more of those PI stories? I'm feigning. Private investigator would be fun, interesting. I do have a series of security, like private security kind of related stories coming up. It's kind of a different topic, but I think it'll be interesting. How's Pradeep? He's good. He is curled in a corner over there. No joke, this flight is headed to Atlanta. Let's go. I'm psychic. What are you doing there? George Clooney was the best Batman. I don't even think I've seen that one. You put your playlist somewhere? Oh, like the music? I just pick like a random one on YouTube to play, but I can link it here for you in case anybody wants to give it a listen. Kevin Conroy voiced a character on the new Devil May Cry series. Really? That's crazy. So it took that long before it came out. Andrew with the 2 says, my first time on the net was fall 1993 on Prodigy. What's Prodigy? It's the dark web before the dark web. Clooney was horrible. Yeah, I don't think I've seen like any of the old ass Batmans. I think I like sort of watched the one with Two-Face and Jim Carrey as the Riddler. My voice does things. It makes you see hallucinations. First time internet was fall 97. Yeah, I think me getting on was definitely AOL, dial-up back in the day. I'm based in Birmingham, coming back to the States after a long time. Oh shit, nice. Well, welcome home, Captain. We've been waiting. Alright, friends, we got bonus content tonight. We got some really, really weird and out there paranormal camping. It was a topic that I've been looking for a while. I'm not sure how well it would do in a normal, video. So we're going to test it here on bonus content for the true fans, the true gamers, and see how y'all likes it. He trim Pradeep's nails. Does he make it difficult? He doesn't really make it difficult. I only do it every so often, like once it really starts to build up and it, like, he gets it caught on stuff, because it's pretty funny. He'll like try to stretch on something and then like pull away, and then it gets like caught, and then his arm gets like all twisted up because he's like he like goes limp, and then just he's sitting there like, I'm like, okay, I guess it's time to trim. Get a little off the edge. Hopelessly dedicated gamer. That's good. Anybody been playing Oblivion? I am still slowly making my way through the Thieves Guild, because I'm a goddamn thief. Do you remember all the stories you read? I vaguely recall some, but I feel like if you just like said a name, I wouldn't really remember it. It had to be like specific stuff that happened. Yeah. Robin Williams. Yeah, Robin Williams was an OG. A real gamer. You never finished what you were saying about the lockpicking in Oblivion. Oh, yeah. So basically, lockpicking, the way you do it, is it's not the fact that it has to be like flush at the top for you to press like spacebar or accept or whatever it is on the controller. the trick is to like watch it go up, and if it goes up like slow, so you watch the ascent. If the ascent is slow, you know that that's going to be like a perfect, or like essentially the one you want to press spacebar once it hits the top. So you get used to it, but once you realize that the one that's important is like the slow ascent, then you can kind of like do it 100%. You know, you're never going to break all your picks or whatever. Because before that, I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? This feels, because it felt so much different than Skyrim, but it is different. Studying for finals, happy to have some spooky stories and chill yaps. You got it. What final is first? Okay. My mate and I, Paul, drove up to Loch Aber in Scotland for a fishing. Loch Aber. Explain. Yeah, IRL lockpicking is pretty much the same. Loch Aber. Kind of want to like have food delivered to my home, but I also don't want to eat on stream. I don't know. Lately I've just been like so hungry. Just want to eat and eat. And eat and eat and eat. Wingstop. I don't even know if we have one of those. Alright, let me just ask how to say maxing out mouth sounds. Also, I'm like not too certain about this calisthenics program I've been doing, because it's like the upper body stuff I can burn myself out pretty well, but I just don't know. I don't know, maybe it's just the stuff that I'm doing, but it just doesn't feel very like all encompassing and like challenging, I guess. I don't know, it just feels kind of off. And then like the leg days, when it's like primarily body weight stuff, even when I put like a weighted vest on, I just like don't even feel it, and it's kind of compared to like lifting weights, you know what I mean? Rock climb definitely would hit the upper body lats and shit for sure. Your girlfriend's pregnant? Nice, dude. Are you happy about it? Loch Aber. Emphasis on Loch Aber. Kevin, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, dude. And sports stats, good to see you. How many watching on Twitch? Let's check, guys. Yeah, I pinned that up there. Twitch gets better notifications. Oh, we have 6 people over there. That's crazy. The Knight M301 Glue. What's that emoji? I'm following you on Twitch. I feel so happy. Oh, sweet, guys. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, is the sound quality better over there? Who knows? Loch Aber. Okay, let's just kick this off, shall we? Alright, god damn it. I'm like leaning forward and my fucking jacket is getting in the way. I'm famous? Thank you. I don't feel famous. I feel stupid. I feel fat. Alright. We're going shirtless. Whatever. Unknown Masios. I don't know how to say that, but thank you so much for the 1. Loch Aber, okay. I'm British. Yeah, I'm from Loch Ness. I'm from Loch Aber. Back in April of 2014, me and my mate Paul drove up to Loch Aber in Scotland for a fishing weekend. We'd known each other since primary school, so we were very close friends. But once we each started working full-time jobs, getting married, and having kids, opportunities to hang out got fewer and further between. That was around 2009/2010, and it was also around then that Paul invited me fishing for the first time. But little did I know, the decision would kick off a chain of events that would lead... God damn it. Locked the frick in. But little did I know, the decision would kick off a chain of events that would lead to one of the single most terrifying, confusing, and ultimately haunting events of my entire life. I didn't even know Paul was into fishing when he first invited me, but after joining him that first time, I instantly understood what it did for him. He worked 9 to 5 all week, drove home to wrestle the kids into bed, and while that second part was a joy beyond words, the whole young parent lifestyle could leave you really burned out in need of rest. Back in the early 20s, the idea of sitting on a riverbank doing nothing all afternoon wasn't in the least bit appealing. I thought the early 20s. What kind of stories? Yeah, these are paranormal camping stories. I thought it was hiking, but I think it's camping. Oh, Mel, welcome back for 5 months. Says, hey chat, hey Let's Read, thanks for being here. Thank you, Mel. Good to see you. Diddy's coming. No, not Diddy. What? Diddy. Okay. Back in the early 20s, Jesus fucking Christ. Back in my early 20s, the idea of just sitting on a riverbank doing absolutely nothing all afternoon wasn't in the least bit appealing. But at a stage in my life when it was either chaos at work or chaos at home, an afternoon's fishing turned out to be pure bliss. Cut to about 4 years later, and we're driving up to this private loch. Why is my mic keeps like dipping to the side for some stupid reason? It's getting loosey-goosey. Am I nervous? No, when I'm recording, I have to like start and stop, otherwise I'd be recording my mistakes, and I don't want to do that. Just easier to edit when I start and stop. Pretty good chilling the day off tomorrow, thank God. That's good. What do you got planned? Gonna go fishing? Tape the microphone to my face. I used to have like my streaming mic was just like a lapel microphone, and I had like a pair of headphones and then like a headlamp thing that like looped around. I think it was for the phone, honestly. But then I would like use that almost like, kind of came out in front of me like a headset mic. But then I had the lapel hanging from it. You're going to play Expedition 33. That's cool. So that's just like a turn-based RPG, right? But it's really good, I guess. Cut to about 4 years later, and we're driving up to this private loch in Scotland that we'd gotten permission to do some fishing at. A friend of a friend's dad had a membership, so we just had to drop his name if anyone showed up, and we'd be grand. And permission was especially important since we were planning on camping there for 2 nights. It wasn't our first camping trip like that. We'd been on about a dozen of them by then, so we'd long since graduated from bare-bones survival to bringing all kinds of gadgets to make us safer and more comfortable. We had stuff like the jet boil, which made making tea and coffee a bunch easier, and we also had a portable charging banks. We had stuff like the jet boil, which made making tea and coffee a bunch easier, and we also had portable charging banks for our phones and portable speaker. But then that year, Paul had brought along a little surprise for me. We just set up camp when he pulls out 2 small walkie-talkies in a waterproof bag. He had them all charged up, and since they cost him a few quid, the batteries were supposed to last a whole week, meaning that we'd be well covered for just a weekend. He brought them to save our phone's batteries, which we usually burn through quite quickly, since we were always playing music or showing each other daft videos or what have you. And then combined with the same amount of battery texting. The dare zone. Guys, truth or dare in the chat. You gotta at somebody and then you gotta say truth or dare. And then they gotta respond by adding you. Have you considered getting your foot tattooed as if you were wearing a sock with a block of butter on top of it? I could get that maybe on my forehead. Cover up my other tattoo. Then, combined with the amount of battery... What the fuck is this saying? Combined with the amount of battery texting and calling each other... Oh, okay. Then, combined with the amount of battery texting and calling each other burned, the radios seemed like a pretty solid investment. You might think a weekend of fishing involved a lot of sitting, eating, and sleeping side by side, and it did. But every so often, one of us would wander off to collect firewood, fetch something from camp, or go looking for fresh bait. Firewood and bait could take a while to muster up, so having the radios wasn't just useful, they were really entertaining too. Now, for example, I'd be off collecting firewood, and Paul would announce something over the radio like, "Zulu, 5er 9er, this is Oscar Kilo Charlie. You're a bell end and your mom's a slag. Over." I'd inevitably fire back with, "Copy that, but can confirm she wouldn't touch you with a pooey stick. Over." Or something to that effect, and then back and forth we'd go taking the piss out of each other military style. And we'd have little exchanges like that whenever we were separated for any reason, including on the Saturday afternoon when I made a 6-mile round trip on foot to pick up a lighter. Since both of our lighters decided to stop working within half an hour of one another, and since me and Paul had already had a couple of cans of lager each, I volunteered to walk while Paul stayed behind to keep an eye on our gear. We kept in touch on the radios as long as we could, but seemed to hit the distance limit once the 2-mile mark thanks to the... Fucking shite. Over. Do-do-do. 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 It's almost 5 a.m. Wait, where are you at, Justin? 5 a.m. That means you're in the UK somewhere? Did you fly there? I thought you were in the Americas. We kept in touch on the radios as long as we could, but seemed to hit the distance limit around the 2-mile mark thanks to the hills I had to walk over to make it to the small country newsagents. What the fuck? That whole paragraph's a sentence. Country newsagents. Do you guys know what a newsagent is? Is that just like a convenience store? Break 19, radio check. What's up? Stink like shit. You gotta get up at 5, so fun. Oh man. Sometimes I kind of wish I lived an existence where I was forced to get up at 5 a.m. just to be that thing, you know? I want to be that friend that looks forward to 10 p.m. bedtime. That's what we call a corner store, small store that sells newspapers, candy, etc. Kind of a dying breed now. Okay, that makes sense. Hey, pumpkin scares. Do I write my own stories? I don't know. People send them in. Or I find them on the net. You wake up at 5:30 for work, it sucks. Yeah, but I guess if you're inclined to go to bed, kind of, late, which I feel like I would be, and then I'd be like miserable all the time. Thoughts? There are no thoughts in my head. I do want you guys to ask me questions about my thoughts on things. That's my favorite thing. I love talking about myself. I love saying that I'm the most right, too, whenever I say it. We kept in touch on the radios as long as we could, but seemed to hit the distance limit around the 2-mile mark thanks to the hills I had to walk over to make it to the small country newsagents. I arrived, bought a few disposable lighters along with a few other bits and bobs, then I started walking the 3 miles back to where we were camped. Every so often I'd test the radio to see if Paul could hear me out or not. It stayed quiet for the first mile or so. Then once I'd climbed the hills, I'd started to pick up a little bit of static here and there, just not enough to properly communicate. I kept on testing every other minute, wondering why I'd seemed to get more range on the way out than I had coming back, when suddenly, my radio crackled back to life. It was hard to hear what was being said at first, and I kept trying to tell Paul that I couldn't hear him properly, but it didn't seem like it couldn't hear me either. Thoughts on buffalo chicken? It's good. I'm pregnant with emotion. That's good. You are right. What's your opinion on whether ghosts can get pregnant? Oh, dude, that would be so nice. I wish, like, just in the middle, like, sometimes I kind of wish the idea of, like, a succubus was real, you know, just like this ethereal beast that would come in the night and you just, you know, have a bit of fun. And I mean, I don't think they can get you on child support for anything paranormal at this point. Irish accent the whole time. Do I work out? I try to go at least like 4 days a week, but I feel like as time goes on, I've been getting like less and less enjoyment out of it and like less and less motivated. Like, I really wish I could just like find a sport that like makes me stoked to participate. Succubi are not fun. What if they got big old boobies? What are your thoughts on buildings in China starting to hit their expiration date and are all crumbling apart? I think it sucks. I don't know, I keep hearing like a lot of negative things about China, both from like the perspective of like whether the war will happen in 2027, whether they'll invade Taiwan, or one of the other things is whether they're just like the quote paper dragon of the East, and how like a lot of their economy is just kind of like the fakest of like funny money. I don't know. I can't say I understand the specifics, but all I ever hear is like a lot of their apartment buildings just like don't even have any owners. They just like build them to kind of like, I don't know, arbitrarily lift up their GDP or something, and then that's just it. Thoughts on cults? Well, you make more money leading them, but I guess it's also a lot more fun to be a member. Andrew Batts with the 5 says, what are your feelings on people who say foreign words with an accent when they don't fully speak that language? I personally find it very... Wait, what are your feelings on people who say foreign words with an accent that don't fully speak the language? Oh, I see what you mean. Like they're trying to sound like look at me, I'm so cultured. I said Colombia. I do remember that. Like going to my... Like a friend of mine from like way back in high school started a coffee shop, right? And I go in there, I'm like, oh, cool, okay. What kind of coffee do you get? And they're like, I said something like, oh yeah, and you do this is Colombian coffee. And she's like, Colombian. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Colombia. Like, you don't have to fucking like snarl your nose like there's goo coming out of your face. Like, just fucking say the word. Like, and why do you have to correct me saying it? It's the same shit. It all tastes like fucking tree bark dog shit. Tanzania. Mozzarella. And then a sweet splash of mozzarella. No, I don't know. I just don't care. Who cares? I mean, like, if you're from there or something, like, if you have, like, a natural inclination to say it a certain way, then fine, I don't give a fuck. Like, I still get the idea, but to act like you're just like your typical pretentious Starbucks writer, you know, sitting in like I swear to God, like Starbucks specifically like pays one person to just sit in the middle of their like open floor plan in like a hardwood shitty single person classroom desk to type, you know, I had promiscuous sex or something on their, like that's their PhD research paper or something. That's all that's on their screen, but they have to wear like a scarf and like a pair of like thick rim glasses. And also like for some reason their desk is kind of like in the way of like the line. That would be really funny if they moved their desk like really close to the like foot traffic line so people had to like see what dumbass stupid erotic lore they're typing up on their $2,000 MacBook Pro, which is probably like $3,000 now. Favorite SpongeBob episode? Mine's The Night Shift. That one's good. Man, there's a lot of good ones. I mean, I remember the first episode I ever saw of SpongeBob was when I was in like middle school or something, I think. Maybe younger. And it was the one where it's like, oh, it's a giraffe. do a Boston accent. Never even... Or you can do one. You can, oh, okay. Well, you should go there and listen to it. Honestly, the Boston accent's some of my favorites. I mean, I'm sure it can get annoying after a while, but it is hard. It's hard to hear it and not, like, start to talk like that. Centralia. Centralia. That's how you have to say it if you're from Pennsylvania. If you don't say Centralia correctly, we suck the blood out your neck. I've never seen a single episode of SpongeBob in my life. Never seen more than a single scene in order. Yeah, I guess it just depends on what age you were whenever, I haven't seen a lot of Adventure Time, but granted, it's like, that's a pretty popular one, but Adventure Time also came out when I was, like, in college, you know, so, same with a lot of other, like, random cartoons when I was, like, you know, when you're in, like, that high school, college age, you're just, like, not quite as inclined to watching toons, or maybe you think, like, people are gonna think you're weird or something. You were the exact wrong age. You were 21, watching SpongeBobington. Judging the pilot based on its writing skills. It's hard to hear what was being said at first, and I kept trying to tell Paul that I couldn't hear him properly, but it didn't seem like it could hear me either. I kept on walking for a bit, keeping my radio on and waiting for Paul's voice to finally start breaking through the static. But when it did, something sounded very, very wrong. When I first heard a kind of metallic whining sound coming from my radio, I initially thought that it was some kind of interference. I turned the thing on and off again, hoping that that might fix things, but the second I switched it back on, it was much louder and much clearer than before. It wasn't interference. It was Paul. And it sounded like he was crying. It wasn't crying like wailing crying. It was those soft whimpers and sobs, and they'd come in stops and starts, almost like every so often Paul was holding down the transmission button and then just crying into his radio. Obviously, my first question was something like, "Are you alright, mate?" And I thought that he might have gotten some bad news by text message or something, and people only cry like that when someone's died or something equally serious has happened. I kept asking him what had happened as I sped up my walking pace, but since he wouldn't respond, I could only assume that he couldn't hear me, most likely because the radios weren't as reliable as we first thought. I kept walking, much faster than I had before, while still trying to get Paul to talk to me. And then suddenly, I hear him start to speak. I remember saying something like, "Oh, thank God," thinking that he might finally be able to hear me. But then instead of saying anything that made sense, he still sounded like he was crying as he started saying, Lydia, I'm so sorry." And I respond, Who the fuck is Lydia, mate? What's going on?" Again, he didn't seem to hear me. He just kept on crying, whimpering and repeating that name. But then he'd never mentioned any girl named Lydia before, and it certainly wasn't his girlfriend or his kid's name. So why was he saying it? I started to jog by the time he started getting louder, crying out, "I'm so sorry, Lydia. Please forgive me." While every so often I'd pant breathless things into the... I'd breathe pantsless. My emoji changed to the kitty. What happened? Oh, nice, for the... Yeah, does it show like a celebration of... Because sometimes you can like celebrate at a certain month intervals for the memberships. At the moment you're watching through the Justice League cartoon. That's awesome. You think you got the ugliest accent? Where's your accent from? What's my secret daughter's name? Oh, I don't even know. Maybe something like Splorlac. Swifty. Thoughts on things that are stupid? I think they're alright. I think it's kind of overblown, people calling them stupid. Yawning already? Yeah. I don't know. I'm just a Yanni. I'm Yanni from Europe. Yanni from Yogstonia. I started to jog by the time he started getting louder, crying out, "I'm so sorry, Lydia. Please forgive me." While every so often I'd pant breathless things into the radio like, "I'm on my way. Hang in there. Hey, whatever it is, we're gonna get it sorted, alright?" But I didn't know anything of the sort, and to be honest, I was terrified. I'd never known Paul to cry like that before, ever. Even when we were in primary school and he nearly split his head open falling off of a rope swing, he held back tears like his life depended on it. So to hear him properly sobbing into that radio like that, it put the fear of God into me. Whatever had happened, it was bad, and in all likelihood, I wouldn't be able to do anything about it except let him drink himself into a stupor as we drove back to Manchester to deal with whatever it was. And once I was within a few minutes' walk of our campsite, I kept saying, "Nearly there, mate, nearly there," into the radio. Since I was only a few hundred meters away, I really did think that I'd get a response, as the radios had previously been working fine at those distances. But instead of a solid response, I heard a scream. At first, Paul started shouting, "Lydia, Lydia, please forgive me." And it was so loud that all the distortion came back. Then, before the radio finally went quiet, I heard this horrible, protracted electronic scream before a sudden and terrifying silence. And I ran like hell, sprinting down the dirt track near the private lock's entrance and then continuing all the way until I got back to camp. But when I arrived, there was no signs of Paul anywhere. I looked around, catching my breath, so I couldn't let out a roar of, "Paul, where are you?" So I could let out a... You can actually steal a yawn from someone? Oh, like breathe their... like stick your mouth on their mouth and breathe it in? You could do that on the subway, probably. Can you do muscle-ups or whatever it's called? I used to actually be able to do muscle-ups when I was like... I'm 34 now, so it was 7 years ago. I could do muscle-ups on the rings, and I could do muscle-ups on the bar. But it was like I had just learned how to do them, and then I didn't continue to practice them, and then I kind of semi-forgot how to do them. But I just remember like the scariest part about them was kind of like trying to get your body to be parallel, I guess, with the floor and the bar, while simultaneously like pulling the bar towards your waist, and then trying to like rotate over, you know what I mean? Not the bar, but the bar or the rings to like rotate over, because it's more of like a technique thing rather than like a strength thing. But it's pretty neat. I do wish I could do it still. Clifford! Welcome. Good to see you. What's up? Sorry, I don't know why I yelled that. When they get ready to yawn, you yawn, and then they can't. Yeah, that's kind of like reminds me of my cat or my dog. Whenever you like yawn, they don't yawn. Do you think with an accent? I do, yeah, it's kind of weird sometimes. You do kind of wonder if you're thinking in your... I feel like thinking at this point isn't even like a voice in the head. It's just like an instantaneous, like, knowing, you know? Everything's going great. That's good. I looked around, catching my breath so I could let out a roar of, "Paul, where are you?" But there was no response. I crawled, man. I cried out again, and then again, running from the campsite to the spot near the lock where we were fishing, shouting out his name the whole time. He wasn't at the lock either, which prompted another wild scream of, "Paul, where are you?" Then out of the blue, I heard him. "What?" he called out in response, walking out of the trees to my left with a load of firewood under his arm. He sounded mildly irritated, like he was wondering what the big deal was, and when I saw him, he looked fine. He didn't look like he'd been crying at all. He didn't seem in the least bit agitated by anything. So, to him, I was the only one who'd suddenly been acting weird, and not all the... Wait, what? I think that if you live somewhere where the locals have a thick accent, it's difficult not to pick up. It is kind of funny when you think about like how accents, I don't even know, just like develop. You know what I mean? Because you think about yourself and you're around somebody with an accent who speaks, you know, in this case, English, and you almost just sort of innately pick up little things that their accent might present with. And say you went away to another country for a while that speaks English, you would pick up their accent. But it's just funny to think like in the past that an entire region developed an accent because one person had the most fucking annoying voice of all time that everybody else just like couldn't help but like be infected by whatever the fuck noise was coming out of their mouth, that they also had to like just talk like that too. You know what I mean? Because that's how I assume it like spawns, is someone is just like born with a really weird sounding voice and everyone's like, you know, I think I might sound like that too. It's so annoying. It's funny that I have to like almost make fun of it. Your sign language has an accent. Is that kind of a thing? Like, I mean, I guess there wouldn't be accents as much as it would be like mannerisms. I have a puppet next to me. I'm like moving a puppet's mouth as it's narrating into the mic. Fave video game. Oblivion remastered. So, to him, I was the only one who suddenly started acting all weird, not the other way around. I remember immediately recognizing that something was off, but the first place my mind went was prank. I thought Paul had probably gotten tired of assuming the cadence of an air traffic controller to insult me over the radio, and had instead resorted to scaring the living crap out of me with his newfound talent for voice acting. It seemed obvious, but after I basically stared at him. Okay. You exist because we allow it, you will end because we demand it. Yeah, I guess that's kind of true. If everybody here wanted me dead, probably would be certainly within the realm of possibility of making happen. But I won't go down without a fight. You hate accents from Ohio. Ohio. Your better half has no discernible accent, so weird. Yeah, some people just don't. I don't know. A collective manifestation. Yeah, maybe that's the thing. Maybe if you guys just think the most positive direction for me as an entity, perhaps I would gain such a degree of power that I would become unbeatable. It seemed obvious, but after I basically stared at him in confusion for a moment and asked, "Is this a joke?" he responded with a mostly convincing no. And I say mostly convincing because it wasn't like he didn't have a history of performing some very convincing act-outs in the name of a prank. So I was half expecting him to go from straight-faced and serious to laughing in my face while yelling, "Gotcha." But he didn't. He simply gave me a look of confusion and started asking me what was wrong. In hindsight, I totally understand his confusion. There I was, all red in the face, barely able to get my words out after having been screaming at him, and then when I finally did catch up to him, all I had to ask is this a prank? He'd had his radio on him the entire time, but said that he hadn't heard a thing. The radio had gone silent after he lost connection on my journey to the shop, and he hadn't heard anything else from me until I was standing there in front of him, sweating buckets after running in all my hiking gear. But then, once I caught my breath, and the relief that he was okay had washed over me, I started telling him what I'd heard over the radio. I remember telling him how I'd heard him crying, and he was obviously... Have you seen Mobbed Money Heist? No, it's that. Saskatchewan, bro. You gotta take that ute out, bro. Find out what your sign your Mercury is in. I bet it's Libra or Gemini. I have to find it out? I thought you were the in-house expert on space magic. We just got out of retrograde, and I jumped through 1,000 hoops to avoid the dangers there. I can't be going through any further star consultations right now. It's too much effort. Just learned on Thursday from Charlie Moist Critical there's a foot fondler on the loose in Tampa. Uh-oh, I'll be sure to leave my socks on. You need an exact birth time and birthplace. Yeah, I'm not doing that though. I need your social security. I need your address. We need it all. Yeah. An in-house Jedi. I remember telling him how I'd heard him crying, and he was obviously like, I haven't been crying. What are you on about? So we agreed that I'd heard someone crying and saying sorry, it just couldn't have been him. But then I got to his name and his expression changed. But then I got to the name and his expression changed completely. I told him the person that had been saying sorry to a girl named Lydia. God damn it, sorry, I keep looking over the chat. I don't know. The retrograde was intense. I haven't paid attention to astrology in a long time, but this last few months have felt like retrograde energy. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Aren't we done? Aren't we done with it? Look it up, Joel. Money Heist, very good show. They robbed the printing money place you need to watch with their original language. Put subtitles. I love in the Spain accent. Oh, okay. The chat is distracting. No, it was just for some reason that like momentary thing there about astrology has distracted me. I don't know why. I kept like looking at the chat for some reason. Like it is a curious thing, but I mean, if all you do all the time is like hyper ruminate on the fact that maybe your star signs aren't like correct, I feel like that in and of itself is going to create like paralysis analysis with like everything you do. You know what I mean? Or you're going to like just sort of psychologically put blame on some sort of abstract concept of the outer realms or whatever. You know what I mean? It seems like way too much effort for my mind. You know what I mean? Type in my birth chart for the whimsy. Alright. Give me... We're doing it. Maybe it'll have it. If you let it. I can't allow anything. Alright. Sun sign Gemini. Communicative, curious, adaptable, quick-witted, but can be restless or scattered. Moon sign, unknown, depends on time and place. The moon changes every 2.5 days, so I'd need your birth time and place. Oh, God. Rising sign, ascendant, unknown, changes every 2. This defines your outer... I mean, what's it going to do, though? Like, does it just... Like, what does it do? Like, if you were to give it all this information and find out something, like, is it something that's supposed to, like, help you... Is it something that's supposed to, like, help you choose opportune times to, like, do, you know, to strike, to invade the king's castle, or, like, what's the deal? And that's true, too, how much data information is being farmed by astrology pages. We're going to need a blood sample to really verify this. get to know myself better. I gotta stare at my dumbass in the mirror every day. I think I know me just fine. Gemini Mercury, fast thinker, great communicator. Cancer Mercury, emotionally intelligent, innovative communicator. Venus, like, I don't know what any of this is saying. I don't even know. I don't even know what I'm trying to read for. I was just joking about the Social Security thing. Yeah, I don't know. Research porpoises.
Mischievous dog.
Alright, we're doing it. Alright, you're highly communicative, clever, quick-witted, curious. You likely love learning, joking, analyzing, adapting to change. You might sometimes juggle your balls in your hand. Moon and Venus. I don't even know what I'm looking for here. Intense. I don't know. I'm closing it, guys. I don't care. It's not that I don't care. Like, it's interesting, but it also isn't interesting because it's so... Every time I ever read anything about it, it's always just the most, like, open-ended, ambiguous stuff ever, you know? Like, if it told me I had to be prepared for, like, May 6th, there's going to be a big slime monster coming to your house, and then a big slime monster comes up, and I'm like, damn, I should have left. Then I'd be like, okay, I'm listening. Jenny Joe, welcome back for 43 months. This is Sunday and Wednesday nights are my favorite. Thanks for helping me relax, sleep. Thanks for all the laughs, too. You're welcome, Jenny Joe. Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you for 43 months. That's a long-ass time. I think astrology is evil, and yeah, it's interesting, but there's some truth to it, but I do think it's evil. Joel's insights. Your birthday's being ruined by a giant slime ball. Wait, is it your birthday? Planning to watch 28 Years Later. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. I kind of have a feeling it's probably going to be disappointing a little bit like the other ones. I wouldn't say the other ones were disappointing, but they... Like, if you go back and watch, like, the first one, it kind of had a really weak ending. And if you go back and watch the second one, once the military stuff starts happening, it just, like... it goes downhill really fast. Doesn't mean they're not solid movies, but they're, like... I think there was a reason I only ever saw 28 Weeks Later once, so... The trailer was sick for 28 years, but once you actually get into the nitty-gritty of a movie, you determine pretty quickly that it's probably poo-poo. It's only evil if you use it for dark intentions. Yeah, but I mean, what are you using it for? Like, from what I've saw, it just, like, says a bunch of things about your personality or something, and then, like I don't understand what does it mean, Mars and Taurus? Like, wouldn't I only be referencing double Gemini, smackaroony backaroot duty? I don't know. I just don't get it. Does it mean, like, at different times of the year you're gonna have, like, a really big boner, and then other times your, like, boner's gonna be the size of a pea? It is. Okay. Size of a pea. Damn it. I told him the person had been saying sorry to a girl named Lydia, and by then it was making sense that it wasn't Paul on the radio because, as I said, he didn't know anyone called Lydia. But then the second I mentioned that name, his face dropped enough for me to be like, wait, do you know Lydia? Paul didn't look scared or angry or anything like that, just sort of confused. Really confused. His brow furrowed, his eyes narrowed, and then it looked like he was struggling to find the right words for a second before he asked me, I haven't told you, have I? I asked him to elaborate. Then again, Paul took a moment to collect his thoughts before he asked, have you been snooping through my phone? And I hadn't. And I told him that, and then basically demanded he tell me what was going on. I'd gone from terrified to confused and fairly chill, then right back up towards terror again when I realized the name Lydia was of some significance to him, and obviously in relation to the terrifying experience I had on my way back. And I think I tried to phrase the question about 3 different ways before I finally asked, "Who the F is Lydia, Paul?" Paul looked like he was about to explain, and then cut himself off abruptly to ask, "How the fuck do you know?" And I exploded, saying, "Know what? I heard someone say Lydia. I thought it was you. That's all I know. You obviously know more than me. Just fucking tell me." It looked like he was going to scream back at me for a second, and then cut himself off again, collected his thoughts, and then started to speak as calmly as he could. In so many words, he explained that literally only 2 people in the world knew what he was about to tell me, and that was how his girlfriend had just found out she was pregnant, literally only a week or so before the fishing trip. They hadn't been planning for a pregnancy, but they decided that they wanted to keep it, and had even gone so far as to brainstorm baby names. Paul said he wasn't very imaginative, or too fussed when it came to names. Their routine was that his girlfriend would suggest one and he'd just give it either a yes or a no or a maybe. If it was a boy, Max was very high on the yes list, but if it was going to be a girl, both Paul and his girlfriend agreed that a very beautiful name would be Lydia. In the moments after he respected that name, it was my turn to stand there in a confused stupor for a few seconds. Not respected, repeated. I used to be deeper into astrology when I was in the New Age spirituality, but New Age is rooted in the occult, fallen angel, dark arts, deception. I don't know of any holy astrology. Me neither, brother, me neither. Everything I learn is from a truck stop magazine. That would be really funny. If you go into like a truck stop and there's like a truckers magazine with like tough truckers, but they're like also into like astrology. Like, if you're out there driving on the road, you're going to want to know when your Gemini is creeping up through a stragolalis. Because that shit is going to get precarious, especially if you've gone down and seen the black dog. Row, 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 row. Mother truckers. Can someone use AI and make that? Can someone use AI to make an entire, like... Instagram page devoted to trucker astrology, please? In the moments after he escaped that name... Oops, dude, I keep seeing not the words. In the moments after he repeated that name, it was my turn to stand there in a confused stupor for a few seconds. I responded, "Are you joking? Is this definitely not a prank?" And he swore on his kid's life that he hadn't faked any crying, he hadn't heard me trying to talk to him on the radio, and that he wasn't joking about his girlfriend being pregnant. We were both wrestling with 100 different questions each, with Paul taking a turn to make me Taking a turn. When is Pradeep's birthday? I just say that we have the same birthday because I'm fairly certain he's born in June too. He was a farm cat, found on a farm and raised as such. And now he gets to be a house cat with me. We were both wrestling with 100 questions each, with Paul taking a turn to make me swear that I hadn't talked to his girlfriend and that I hadn't gone through his phone. I swore blind that I hadn't done anything of the sort. I just heard someone using the name Lydia on the radio somehow, before stating what I'd heard was so terrifying because it sounded almost exactly like him. Not so much the crying, but in the way the voice said, "I'm so sorry, Lydia, please forgive me." And what followed were probably some of the most surreal moments of our entire lives. Once we'd accepted that each of us was telling the truth, it didn't matter which way we cut it. Something really, really weird was going on, and both of us were starting to get quite agitated. The only thing we could properly agree on was the idea that somehow I picked up a transmission from someone close by, and in doing so had been responding to that transmission frequency and not the one that Paul's radio was tuned to. That's why Paul couldn't hear me, and the reason why the man shouting about a girl named Lydia couldn't hear me is because he wasn't listening. We were still a bit nervy about the whole thing, but in the end, we decided that it had to be some kind of wild coincidence that Lydia just so happened to be a potential name for Paul's unborn baby. It still left the question of what the hell happened to make that guy cry and scream into a radio like that, but we talked ourselves down from ideas that something paranormal had happened. And we spent the night talking the whole thing out, and as the hours passed, we managed to successfully convince ourselves whatever happened, there was a perfectly logical explanation for it. And that explanation was chilling all on its own because I might have just listened to someone's complete mental breakdown, potentially before they'd done something terrible, hence the scream. But it was a logical one all the same. When we got back home, what happened to us became a bit of a campfire story. We'd retell it with a smile, wowing our mates and the guys down at the pub with a tale of some of them inevitably claiming was a load of bollocks. But those that knew us, really knew us, I really got that. I'm a werecat. Pradeep's age, he is as old as the YouTube channel, so he will be in June turning 11. Has anyone had a fun mental breakdown here in the chat? I feel like there's been some people that have gotten mad at me and left a series of angry responses, but they tended to be a little bit not well in the mind. Thoughts on Mama Max's return? I haven't really looked into that too much. I'm still a little confused as to I never really watched Mama Max's content, but I do vaguely recall the Joseph Rogan thing. I thought that was funny. What the fuck even happened? I don't even know. That's the thing, is that there's so many people within the horror community, and I'm just kind of completely clueless to most of them because I don't really watch that content. But I feel like there was something to do with him trying to build up via his Patreon to they were trying to infiltrate a werewolf headquarters who was trying to have sex with little were babies. I don't know. I have no idea, honestly, and I don't know what the return what happened with the it was cringe but interesting, and the editing was fun, but overall it was definitely weird. Yeah, what's his return? Is he still going to pursue predator catcher type content or whatever? Werewolf vampire cult leader's name I keep hearing. Yeah, I don't remember. Something like that. I just vaguely remember hearing something like that Mama Max was housing the victim that was the center focal point of an upcoming story related to that. And then they became sort of not fans of each other, which I can imagine if you're trying to I don't even know, use somebody to milk somebody for content, but the only way you can do it is by paying their phone bill, but then all of a sudden you yourself have to worry about money, and then you can no longer pay their phone bill, and now they don't like you anymore, and then they paint you out to be a bad person. I'm that seems like a fucking hell, a literal hell you're living in that you created for yourself. There's a jump scare when you popped in. Oh, okay. I guess it's whatever. Big news for the unemployed. There was a week where I swear every single YouTuber was just talking about this guy, but nobody knew for sure if he was actually even real. Yeah, I don't even know, dude. The drama shit, it just comes and goes. There's always something new to talk about that people care about for 15 seconds, and then they move on, and who's the next person to hate on the internet, you know what I mean? Because you have to wonder to what degree anybody's actual hate on the internet has any sort of weight to it whatsoever, seeing as they're memories are so fleeting, and you have to wonder to your own self, are any of my emotions towards any particular thing that's the story of the week even remotely important if I don't care about it more than a week? It's just like, all right, whatever. If there was a God, Jake Paul would have been hit by a bus years ago. Now he's driving the bus, baby. Hitting people like you. Finding you crossing the crosswalk. Burr, burr. Excuse me. Today, we're running over 100 kids for content. For charity. Have you heard of Frankel Dankel epic client poetry? I have not, no. But those that knew us, really knew us, knew otherwise. We weren't the kind of lads to make something up like that, and the fact we weren't like it was defo ghost lads made us all the more credible. We knew that there had to be a reasonable explanation, even if that explanation did sort of sketch the word logic to stretch the word. We knew that there had to be a reasonable explanation, even if that explanation did sort of stretch that word logic to a degree. And for at least a time, the incident was nothing more than a curiosity, something which made for a fun little story for us to tell. But then, as the months went by, and I had time to let my mind wander on the subject, I started having some very uncomfortable thoughts. I know it's not possible for radio transmissions to travel backwards in time. I've looked it up about 100 times in 100 different places, and they've all given me roughly the same answer. Theoretically, if you read up on wormholes and tachyons and all that other complicated physics stuff, then yeah, on paper it is possible for a radio transmission, or alternatively, the signature of a phone call, to travel backwards in time. I suppose some of you might be confused as to why I'm talking about tachyons all of a sudden, so I'll just go ahead and explain what I mean. My biggest, and you might say my most irrational fear concerning what I heard that day, is that I somehow heard something that either happens in the future, or at least had the potential to happen. Something terrible involving Paul and his future daughter Lydia. That did come to pass, oh. Wait, did they name her Lydia? Joseph Rogan. Einstein led me to God, weird path, but yeah, maybe LSD had something to do with it too. Interesting. What did Einstein talk about? Tachyons? Oh, man. That did come to pass, by the way. Paul and his girlfriend had a baby girl in January of 2015, and she turned 10 years old last month as the time of writing this in February of 2025. It sounds a bit horrible, but when I found out it was a girl and that they were going to call her Lydia, an actual chill went through me. I told myself that I was overthinking things, that they'd have a boy or a girl not named Lydia, and that the whole thing would be something that I just look back on and laugh at. But hearing that it had actually happened, I had to pretend to be nothing but happy for him when, really, I was starting to get more and more concerned that something terrible was destined to happen. And for the last 10 years or so, it turned into something I've worried about at an almost daily basis. And I'm glad to say the older Lydia gets, the less anxious I feel, but there's still a small part of me that wonders if something awful is doomed to happen at some point in the near or distant future. I had one guy online suggest to me that maybe what I'd heard was something that only had the potential to happen, and by some kind of weird intervention or awareness, it hasn't, and we've successfully avoided it. And I hope that's true. I hope I've just hideously overthought what amounts to a bizarre coincidence, but the alternative is so frightening that I can only barely bring myself to think about it. Tachyons are hypothetical particles that always travel faster than light. Yeah. I never quite understand, like, the theoretical physics concept, but I guess I'm not supposed to understand it because I don't have any of the knowledge to kind of create the baseline. But I do wonder to what extent any of it's real, or if it's all just sort of like, well, it worked on my sheet of paper. But I also kind of like wonder when they say like things are mathematically possible. How do you just like come up with something, or is it seem like within the equations that something is like theoretically missing, so you just throw it in there or something? I don't know. Albert Einstein taught black physicists in the Jim Crow South when nobody else would because he was a badass. Oh, that's good. Would you ever consider eating cake with toothpaste as frosting? I guess if there was a lot of money to be had, or I don't even know, how much toothpaste can you eat before you're sick? Ludicrous speed. We need relativity for GTS to work. Oh, that's true, yeah. So, like, he arrived at that. But it kind of makes you wonder, like, if he came up with these theoretical physics, are other people, was he just the genius and everybody else is not? Or do we have a shit ton of, like, Einsteins that exist today? I don't know. I guess if I don't go into specifics, all it is just some sort of, like, fanciful thought in my head. It's good for your teeth to eat toothpaste cake. Baths freak you out? How come you haven't taken one in 900 years? Would you time travel? If so, where are you going first? Probably not that far. Just go back to 1990 again. Start over. Yeah, I feel like you wouldn't want to consume that much fluoride. Yeah, that's a good point. I recently found your podcast on Spotify, and it really helps me get to sleep, so I've been listening a lot over the past few weeks. At first, I didn't read any of the show notes or anything, and then recently, I found out that a lot of what you read are submissions from fans. Well, I actually got a story of my own you might like to hear, and it quite heavily ties into why I need help getting to sleep at nights. I used to do a lot of hiking and camping in my youth, especially with my family as a child. But after I moved to San Francisco for college in 1989, finding hiking partners proved much easier said than done. Don't get me wrong. I met a few people that I really got along with, and some of them I remained friends with well after we graduated. But with weekends mostly reserved for partying, and with campus life being pretty busy in general, sometimes I'd wake up on a Saturday morning to find that everyone had pulled out of a trip that we'd been planning for weeks. And I remember being very disappointed, but I didn't stop inviting people. I remember being very disappointed, but I didn't stop and cry and stop inviting people. Instead, I just headed out on my own at times when I really needed to de-stress. The first couple of times didn't feel quite as fun with company, but then after... didn't feel as fun with... Oh, I see. You love me, I love you too. Can you leave the part in the video of you saying, oh wait, did they name her Lydia? Yeah. I'll try my best. Time travel to go see Frank Sinatra perform live. That does seem like a fun time. Everybody had some cool ass suits. Go back to the 50s, as repressed it was, he would. I don't know. 50s to the 90s. Yeah, I don't know. We live in a very strange time, I guess. A very uncertain time, I suppose. But who knows, maybe more people will sort of take hold of their reality, I guess, in a state of uncertainty. Go back to my rave days. Don't go to see Sinatra, go see the entire Raw Pack. Oh, the Rat Pack. Yeah, that'd be sick. The Raw Pack. The Amish have it right, yeah. They figured everything, culture peaked in the year 1886. Dog Mab. The Dog Mab. Her name is Wendy. The first couple of times didn't feel as fun with company, but then after a while I started to really appreciate the peace and quiet of being alone on the trails. They'd be fairly occupied on weekends, of course, but sometimes I'd head out on weekdays too, days when I was so isolated it felt like I was the last person on Earth. I got kind of addicted to that feeling, I guess. The peace of being completely at peace. College felt so people-oriented at times that it really drained my social battery, so heading out into the woods whenever I got the chance felt just as restorative as it was relaxing. But it was only once I started visiting the Redwood State Parks that my hiking obsession got kicked into overdrive, because for the very first time in my life, I came face to face with a coastal redwood. Imagine standing at the base of a tree so tall that you can't see the top without tilting your head way, way back. A tree so enormous that when you're standing among a bunch of them for the first time, it kind of feels like you've shrunk by a couple of feet. Well, that's the coastal redwood, the tallest living thing on planet Earth. Most of them are between 300 to 350 feet tall, and their trunks can grow just over 20 feet wide. So I'm not exaggerating at all when I say that they are mind-blowingly gigantic. They're too old, ancient even. They're old too. Ancient even, with some scientists estimating that the oldest in California have been standing tall for over 2,000 years. Hiking among them sometimes feel like you're on another planet, like it really is truly surreal. Okay. Why are they called speakeasies? Let's look it up. Why are they called speakeasies? The phrase likely comes from the 19th century slang where the bartenders would tell patrons to speak easy when ordering alcohol, especially in illegal establishments. One of the earliest printed uses of the term in 1889 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, describing an unlicensed saloon. The term speakeasy comes from the idea that patrons need to keep quiet and talk carefully. Speakeasy. But everyone wanted their alcohol so bad, they're like, fuck it. That is funny. I wonder why alcohol would be banned in the first place. Well, I guess we could just ask it. Why was alcohol banned in the first place? Well, I know prohibition, but like, why? The temperance movement, led largely by religious groups, especially Protestant Christians, believed alcohol was the root of many societal problems: crime, poverty, domestic abuse, and moral decay. Groups like the Women's Christian Temperance Union, the WCTU, and Anti-Saloon League were very influential. Alcohol was seen as a threat to family stability and Christian values. Industrial efficiency, employers and factory owners supported prohibition, believing sober workers were more productive and reliable. In an industrializing America, drunk workers were seen as a safety hazard and financial liability. What do you mean? I can work this heavy machinery drunk. Just as well, if not better, than sober. Rural America, especially in the South and Midwest, had growing influence and saw urban immigrant drinking cultures and immoral and un-American. Prohibition was partly a cultural clash between rural traditionalists and urban modernists. Drinking was associated with German, Irish, and Italian immigrants, especially in cities after World War I. Anti-German sentiment made people suspicious of breweries, many of which were German-owned, adding fuel to the movement. Legal result, the 18th Amendment in 1919, ratified in 1919 and enacted in 1920 via the Volstead Act. It banned the manufacture, sale, and transport of alcohol beverages. It didn't ban consumption, but it made it very hard to get alcohol legally. Okay. Interesting. Your father's side was smugglers for the bootleggers. That's cool. Did you hang with Fast Eddie? Hiking among them sometimes feels like you're on another planet, like it really is a truly surreal experience for folks like me who didn't grow up with them on their doorstep. That sounded so weird, I don't know why. Hiking among them sometimes feels like you're on another planet, like it really is a truly surreal experience for folks like me who didn't grow up with them on their doorstep. It got to the point where I'd head up to the forest surrounding Mendocino. Mendocino. Prohibition led to some good. Yeah, what happened? The amendment that overturned prohibition is why alcohol isn't banned, but weed is. Oh, it transitioned to that. But it wasn't the whole weed thing like a lumber primarily focused thing, like the lumber industry? I don't know if that's true or not, because they were afraid that hemp would replace a lot of the paper production or whatever. I don't know. Dark Monster, thank you. Love you too. When am I going to go to Japan? Hopefully one day. Some of my friends went this past year. I didn't really get to follow up with them on how it went, but it got to the point where I'd head up to the forest surrounding Mendocino at least 3 or 4 times a month. Whenever possible, I'd drive up on the Friday, spend a night or 2 on the trails, and then head back to San Francisco in time for classes on Monday. And while I definitely couldn't stick to that kind of schedule during my final year in post-grad job hunting, heading out to the Redwoods became my go-to choice of exercise and spiritual cure-all. By the time I was in my late 20s, I must have been to Del Norte Coast, Del Norte Coast, Jedediah Smith, and Prairie Creek State Parks okay. When are we all going to get matching tattoos? That would be so funny, actually. If, like, some YouTuber started, got, like, a tattoo for his symbol or something, but it was, like, kind of, like, largely known as being similar to, like, the brand that they got for that, like, NX, or that Nexium, remember the Nexium cult, or whatever? And just, like, thousands of users get branded willingly. I do hope that there's I really do hope at some point there's a YouTuber that's just like a full-on cult leader. That shit would be so funny. By the time I was in my late 20s, I must have been to Del Norte Coast, Jedediah Smith, and Prairie Creek State Parks about 100 times apiece. And while I didn't quite know them like the back of my hand, I knew them well enough to walk among the towering redwood trunks with the utmost confidence. I was an experienced hiker and camper. I could take care of myself out in the boonies, and I also figured that I'd seen just about everything the woods had to throw at me. But then, on a weekend-long hike in 1996, I was proven incorrect on that last point, and spectacular in terrifying fashion. And so by the summer of '96, I'd been hiking around the woods in Mendocino County for coming up on 6 years. Then after a chance meeting with a local homeowner while out in the trails, he gave me permission to park my car outside of his house for safekeeping. Let's breed tramp stamps. Get 'em, line 'em up, folks. Get your tramp stamp. Get your buttersock tattooed on tonight. Do it yourself with a really hot needle and lighter. Just kidding. If I ever met you, would I shake oregano or garlic on me? I would just sit there with like a crank and saying, "Tell me when," until you're completely covered. Then, after a chance meeting with a local homeowner while out in the trails, he gave me permission to park my car outside his house for safekeeping. His home was among a collection of simple country homes right next to where the Willets and Three Chop Roads intersect on the Noyo River, and this meant that I was able to park up there and then have almost direct access to the deep woods from my tiny island of civilization among the endless sea of redwoods. When I say deep woods, I'm talking about just as deep as you can possibly get. Sometimes I'd be more than 3 or 4 miles from the nearest marked trail and up to 20 miles from the nearest highway. Hiking alone in those kinds of areas can be risky because if you get hurt, getting help can be very, very difficult. But I'd also reached the point where if I wasn't pushing the envelope in some way, if I didn't feel completely and utterly isolated and alone, then I wasn't satisfied. And the same could be said for the exercise aspect, that I was just training harder and harder, but there was definitely a spiritual aspect to it too, and I kind of relied on it to keep me from getting too stressed in my professional life. So that summer of 1996, late June to be exact, I set off from my buddy's place on a route that I must have hiked half a dozen times before. For the first part of the journey, my route took me past a couple of campgrounds and trailheads, but after about mile 10, it was all untouched forest. I used to think that with how isolated I was walking on ground that hadn't been touched for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. These were places that not even the native Namlaki tribespeople had used for hunting or burial grounds. Jeez, that came at me. Namlaki. 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 Yeah, I guess Namlaki. Nam locked in. The Nam locked in tribes people. The most focused tribe. Namlaki is your favorite munchie. It's delicious. Hey Lottie Lou, how are you? Tree flesh, what's up, dude? There were places that not even the native Namlaki tribespeople had used for hunting or burial grounds, ageless and primordial. But therein lay the thrill. I'd usually make it about a mile 15 before I ran out of steam. But in June of 1996, I managed to push myself a whole 18 miles into the deep woods before I finally tapped out. Granted, I'd started extra early that day, but I've been wanting to advance into untouched territory for quite some time, so it felt great to break what I guess I would call my personal best. I made camp, ate a little food, then after a quick hygiene routine, completed with some eternally handy... What the fuck? Oh my god, this is long as shit. That's crazy. Now I'm gonna ask you something. I made camp, ate a little food, then after a quick hygiene routine, completed with some eternally handy wet wipes, I had a smoke and then hit the hay. The next morning, after I ate a few power bars for breakfast, I decided to pack up my tent and head back in the direction of my car. The extra miles were well worth it, but it still meant that I had one hell of a hike ahead of me if I wanted to get home before it was too late to order takeout. I walked for about 4 or 5 hours, stopped for a quick lunch, and then got back on the move again as quickly as I could. I was trying to cover as much ground as possible while staying on the right bearings, so I think I was mostly either looking at the ground right up ahead of me or at my compass. But then at one point, I looked up for no particular reason to see something that, in all my years of hiking, I'd never seen before. Despite the name, it's not just redwoods that grow out of... Despite my... Oh my God. Now I'm gonna ask you something. It's the interviewer that you're working with. Now I'm gonna ask you something. Despite the name, it's not just redwoods that grow out in the redwood state parks. You see trees like Douglas firs, western hemlock, spruce trees, and as I saw in the woods that day... What? And as I saw... You see trees like Douglas firs, western hemlock, spruce trees, and as I saw in the woods that day, collections of tanbark oaks, or tan oaks for short. There was about 5 or 6 of them, all leaning at angles of between 60 to 80 degrees, and while that's not entirely unusual in a place with a lot of dense growth, what immediately drew my attention was how they all seemed to be leaning toward each other. They looked like the frame of some giant ancient tipi? Göbekli Tepe? Teepee. Oh, teepee. Okay, sorry. I was like, what the... I was thinking of like Göbekli Tepe or whatever. What do the redwoods grow out of? I don't know, probably a little mustard seed. Despite his dyslexia, he farted. Sasquatch is there sitting, chilling, listening with her. He's like, this guy's pretty good. Tepe. Right. Oh. They look like the frame of some giant ancient teepee, something a bunch of similarly minded hikers had started to put together before abandoning. Then as I looked up, I saw that all of their foliage was bunched up and intertwined, forming a great impermeable... God damn it, man. Then as I looked up, I saw that all of their foliage was bunched up and intertwined, forming a great impermeable mass of leaves and branches. As I said, I'd never seen anything like it before, so after stopping me dead in my tracks, I just kind of stared at it for a moment or two, wondering what the hell I was looking at. The first explanation that popped into my head was that it was some kind of nest or den, because it didn't look remotely human in construction. But I couldn't know for certain until I took a closer look, so that's what I did. With the woods being calm and quiet, I figured the den thing was empty and uninhabited. But as I started walking closer at a very casual walk, I heard something which stopped me in my tracks. It came from the nest thing, that much was clear. The dense green mass of leaves and twisted branches which, by then, was almost 30 meters directly above my head. It sounded like someone hitting a stick against some sort of hollow tube, like a tud, 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 but really loud with that echoey hollow sound to it. I froze, looking right up at the mass of foliage above my head, feeling the hairs of my arms and neck begin to stand on end as I realized something was inside of it. I figured the only thing large enough to make a sound like that would be a bear, I mean, I had zero clue what the hell was going on, but as I tried my best to figure it out, that's where my thoughts landed. Some very talented black bears have gotten up there and had somehow made a den where the branches of 5 or 6 trees just so happened to have converged. Then, if she was somehow finding a way to make the noise by wrapping her claws against something, then she was surely doing so as a warning to stay away from herself and her cubs. I didn't move a muscle for a minute, so... Do they have imaginary friends? You still do? I remember being little, like trying to force myself to have imaginary friends. And, I don't know. I was mainly just copying, like, Rugrats or some stupid shit. It didn't last very long, though. But I think, in a weird way, I suppose praying to God sometimes kind of feels like having a permanent imaginary friend with you, you know, some sort of spiritual connection, even though I'm not trying to say that that's the case. It's just like sometimes you're like, well, I still do talk to some sort of abstract, ethereal entity. Force myself what? Oh, well, I was like thinking when I was like 6 years old, when I say force myself, well, no, maybe I was like 4 or 5. I don't remember. I was in daycare, but I think it was like before I started school or some shit. And I was playing with kids at the daycare and like, but I was like trying to like basically enact what I saw in like the episode of Rugrats by like saying that there was like a, by saying that there was like a imaginary friend that was like playing hide and seek with us, trying to find us, but I was like the determiner of whether or not they could find us and stuff. And I just remember everybody was like listening to me, but even as like a little kid, I was sitting there thinking like, this is retarded. Like I'm the one making all of this up in my head, and you guys are all listening to me. And even though I objectively realized that we were just playing, for some reason in my mind I was like, this just seems a little ridiculous, guys. What if I'm lying? What if the imaginary friend's not real, guys? Do I pray even if it feels like God isn't listening? Yeah, I guess I do, you know? I mean, it's like one of those things where it's like you got to go through life and it's sort of like having some sort of, I don't know, a connection to the eternal of sorts gives you a sense of like hope and purpose, I suppose, in life. And it doesn't mean you need that exactly per se, but it's just my own, you know, personal existence, I suppose. Your imaginary friend was Clive or Sue Hipple? That's their name. It's funny. Praise Jesus. Connection to the eternal, well said. Yeah, you know, it's... I mean, otherwise, like, when I just sit there and I look at myself completely alone, I just realize, like, how silly I am as, like, a individual perspective on this earth. I'm like... Whenever I sit there and I think that it's all just essentially up to me on whether or not something succeeds or is accomplished, maybe I just feel like a sense of hubris within myself that I just don't wish to accept. You know, I don't like to put too much, like, I guess, pressure on myself individually, both on success and failure. So if that can be sort of, if that sense of anxiety, I guess, can be put on, like, some being outside of myself, maybe that just helps me a little bit psychologically. I don't know. We are the future ancient astronauts. What do you think of the ancient astronaut theory? I mean, I guess that could be a possibility too, you know. I even saw something pop up on Instagram the other day where it was like saying that like certain aspects of Earth were like seeded with like various different groups of like humans coming from all sorts of different races and stuff, rather than like all sort of originating from maybe like one area in Africa. It could have been like everybody was planted in different locations and sort of expanded outward. I don't know. It's weird. Who knows, I guess. Isn't that kind of strange? Like, we just, like, we go through our whole existence sort of relatively just, like, there's always just, like, a running narrative in the back of our mind of, like, uncertainty. You know what I mean? Just an absolute sense of uncertainty. And we do everything in our power to try to, like, forget that we're, like, completely uncertain where it all began and where it all ends. Even on our, like, own individual lives. Just strange. How did you deal with scary monsters in the dark? I used to pretend to be their friends and they wouldn't scare me. I just get naked. I would just get crazy naked and run around and just assume that, like, they wouldn't want to do anything. Or I'd tell on them. I asked my uncle if a Christian can believe in evolution of the Bible at the same time, and he vehemently said no. I mean, you can believe in whatever you want, you know? It's like, there's, I guess definitively when you look at, like, the biblical story coming from, like, you know, originating from, like, the Torah or, like, the first five books of, like, the Old Testament, you know, it seems like the origin story just sort of says, like, this sort of amorphous blob of earth was sort of, like, formless and dark, and then God was just like, all right, let there be light and land and life. And, you know, I mean, there's so many different interpretations, but I guess if you were to take it more literally on the nose till it starts to, like, evolve or slowly mesh into, like, a more of a historical context, I guess, from, like, a narrative perspective, then I don't really see how, like, evolution could necessarily integrate itself in there. But I guess if there was, like, some sort of unsaid amount of time prior, like, leading up to the creation of, like, modern Homo sapiens or something, then maybe, I don't know, man. I guess, like, it would just come down to how you would sort of reconcile that within, like, a scriptural context, I suppose. Hence why I can't really say I know what the fuck's going on, because none of it makes any sense. Do you have a horror movie that scared the fuck out of you, like, wasn't able to watch it until an adult? Yeah, it was definitely Tales from the Hood. My, like, family put on Tales from the Hood, and then, like, those, like, little dolls that were filled with the slaves from the slave house, like, ate that guy alive. Like, they would just, like, they came alive, and, like, they were, well, it was funny because the one scene is where he, like, the guy trips and falls down the steps and breaks his neck, and you know, just those dolls were creepy. But then, like, they, at the end, I just, like, for some reason as a kid, like, avoided the movie, but I would just, like, come out and see, like, little bits. And, like, toward the end, when it was getting really loud, I came out and watched, like, peeked around the corner, and all the dolls were, like, eating the guy alive, like, ripping off his skin. And I'm just like, holy shit. I guess I'm just permanently afraid of dolls forever now. Joel, has to do with the 7 days creation, whether they were 24-hour periods or whether they were longer periods of time than 24 hours. Right. Yeah, I've heard that theory and stuff, and it's, yeah, the interpretation, I have no idea. I mean, it definitely seems like you go to, like, Genesis, 6:4? Is it 6:4 or 6:14? And it talks about, like, the Nephilim and stuff, and the giants in the land, these sort of, like, mixtures between, like, angels and humans. It says when, like, the sons of God came down and made, you know, children with the daughters of man. So it sort of implies that, like, there was, like, some type of alien type beings or whatever came down and mated with humans and created some sort of crazy fucking hybrid bullshit, which maybe that's what Hercules was, or, like, the great titans or the gods or whatever. And then that for some reason caused the flood because it interfered with, like, the direct bloodline from Adam to, like, Jesus or something like that. I don't know. I've just, you know, this is just from years of, like, hearing people talk about crazy shit. Mister. You know that Mr. lady? I think you killed her. So the ventriloquist dummy next to you is for exposure therapy? Yeah, essentially. I'm just trying to desensitize myself and also get really good at ventriloquism. Ventriloquifing. That'd be kind of funny to do, like you throw your voice, but you actually throw a queef through somebody else's vagina. Did I see Sinners? No, I haven't. I did see that popped up on, like, Red Letter Media reviews, and I love their videos, but I only ever watch their videos whenever I've seen the movie, because it's just more fun that way. And maybe I'll check that out if it's good. What's it about? Well, you don't have to ruin it. Maybe it'll be more fun to like not know what it's about and just go into it. I always laugh when I think about the Buttersakians. They don't realize when Joel is being sarcastic. Yeah, sometimes I do sound a little bit too monotone to like pick up on sarcasm. I do remember a girl telling me that growing up. They're like, Joel, sometimes you are so sarcastic all the time that I genuinely can't tell when you're serious. And that was the first time I'd ever heard anyone say that to me, so I was like, okay, maybe I should tone it back a little bit. But it's hard. It's hard not to like take the piss out of almost every scenario. How to come up with the name Let's Read? It was really just like back during the PewDiePie era of like 2014, like 11 to 14. And, I was just like, oh, let's read, let's plays, I'm making a let's read, I'm making a let's play, And so the hope was like seeing that would like, I guess, brand-wise make a little bit of sense between those people who were into that kind of stuff. And I kind of regret naming myself Let's Read, because it's just like, it's not spooky like the, all the other narrators are like Mr. Raper, or like Mr. Stick a Finger, or Mr. Skeleton Cream, something like that would have been way cooler. Did you always want to be a YouTuber? Yeah, ever since I was born, ever since I turned 6, and I knew that YouTube would be invented in 2008, I knew that I'd be a YouTuber. Ever since Robin Williams made Flubber, I knew I'd be a YouTuber. When am I recording the next story? Oh yeah, sorry, I get sidetracked here. I'm just in the midst of recording one right now. We're on page 6 of 16. We're making our way through. Nick Crawley and Expo are not scary names. Joel, you're doing yeah, that's true. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like just the only thing that really matters in the success of your channel is like the videos and the video type. Basically, literally, if you guys ever make content on YouTube, the only fucking thing that matters a lot of the times is the title and the thumbnail. I'm not even joking. Like, how many times have you gone into like, you clicked a sick title and a sick thumbnail and you're like, oh fuck, what's this gonna be? And the person that's like telling you about something has like no production value whatsoever. You know what I mean? It's just like fucking nothing. But the fact that you're here now and you're hearing about some like scoobly gooblies, you're just like, well, I'll just leave that on while I eat fucking slop from a trough. What's your thoughts on other channels I listen to? T6 Snook. I've never heard of Snook. I know T6. I've worked with T6 before. He's a very nice guy. Percentage of stories you read to believe to be fictional. 0%. They're all true. And they're all the best content on the internet. The only kind I'm making is from a dumbass discussion post. What's that? Oh, for... yeah, that'd be funny. You're doing homework, but you convince yourself you're making content. Actually, that wouldn't be a bad YouTube channel for someone like from a young age who wants to like make YouTube videos. They just like record themselves doing homework and just call it homework ASMR, doing long division. Joel, who is the worst low-key celeb you've dated? I dated a radio DJ once who made me listen to recordings of his old show every time we drove anywhere and loved himself way too much. Nah, I can't listen to my own content at all. Like, I really can't. Like, I'll listen to it for a while, but I do get a strong sense of, like, cringe from it, you know? And I don't think I've ever, like, dated a celebrity, really, or anything like that. Math nerds on YouTube are really funny. Yeah. They sit there and argue about their favorite abacus. What's up, Shorn? I didn't move a muscle for a minute or so after I'd first heard the noise. Then, when maybe 20 or 30 seconds of silence had passed and the noise didn't repeat, I started slowly backing up, keeping my eyes locked on the mass of foliage for any movement. I'd taken about 3 slow steps backwards when I'd heard the noise again. It was softer that time, without so many tud-tuds, but it was 100% coming from the nest thing that I had my eyes glued to. I didn't run. I knew better than to turn my back and bolt. If whatever was in that nest wasn't a black bear, and it had chase instincts, running would probably trigger them. And that's why I didn't run, why I couldn't just run, and why I watched that thing unblinkingly until I was at least 40 to 50 meters away. Only then did I turn my back and walk a little more briskly. But every 2 or 3 seconds, I'd fire a look over my shoulder just in case anything had climbed down from the nest and happened to be following me. Nothing climbed out of it, and I didn't hear any more of that eerie knocking sound either, but as I was walking away, I heard a different kind of sound that had me spinning around in fearful anticipation. At first, it sounded like old bark stretching and snapping, kind of like what you hear before a tree falls, I suppose. And then at the same time, I started to hear a bunch of rustling up high, and I was pretty curious it was coming from up near that nest thing. I turned around on the spot, half expecting to see that black bear mama running at me through the trees. But again, I saw something that I'll never, ever be able to fully explain. The tan barks, the leaning ones, they were moving. They didn't all move at once. They took turns rising up out of the dirt, like some fairy tale giant was plucking them. Oh, what the hell? What the hell? A Mercedes Abacus. I got myself a digital TLR camera. That's cool. What are you going to do with it? Mr. Hole. Mr. Hole. Every car journey was an old recording of one of his shows, and he used to see old ladies while we were out and meet his fans. That's awesome. This guy sounds cool. I want to hang out with him. Can I send you some whoopie pies in the mail? Yeah, wait, why are you 5 hours in the future again, did you say? Or can you... oh, you're on site. We already figured it out, baby. We already broke your NDA. I remember watching when you didn't have that check mark, bro. Oh, really, Cody? That's a long ass time. Was that like so that's pre 100,000. How do I not remember? Normally, like there's some names I see on the channel. Like there are some people, some usernames I've seen that I've literally remember from like when I first started YouTube over like a decade ago. It's kind of nuts. Ireland, it's not going to be too expensive, right? No, it's all right. I'll send you all the ingredients individually, mixed with cow manure. That'd be kind of cool, though. You should make some over there when you're with your Irish friends and tell them, this is a Pennsylvania original. But then they're like, bro, we literally brought that over to you guys. Oh, dang. Like you're the only one talking like a leprechaun. That'd be funny. They didn't all move at once. They took turns rising up out of the dirt, like some fairy tale giant was plucking them out of the ground one by one. Then no sooner did they rise up into the air, exposing long tendrils of roots as they did, but they were slowly lowered back down to the ground with a soft whisper of compressed soil. I genuinely couldn't believe what I was seeing. My brain just couldn't make sense of it for a few moments, and I honestly wondered if I was beginning to lose my mind. When I tried to blink, the moving trees... Watching since the Starlight Fountain, I believe, on your 28th birthday. I think we're doing a drinking stream. That's funny. Yeah, I do. I remember you, lol. It's been... That's crazy. Jesus. Jesus, Malesus. Lean beef patty. Lean queef. He wasn't always in the live streams back then. Oh, no worries. Do I stay up all night? I stay up pretty late sometimes, probably like 3 or 4 in the morning. Sometimes Like after the streams, I usually go to bed. Just depends on how late they go. Yo, no frowns. What's up? I think I saw you earlier, but I'm sorry for not saying something. And Babes. Mariba, too. And Saul. Thank you for the 5. Gifter Roonies, too. Mr. Scythe. Justin Ballas. Rasanil. Angela. Dylan Cook. And Marley Chanson. Welcome, friends. You now have access to bonus content, which we are recording right now. Saul Goodman himself. Do I have a day job? Not anymore. I think I went completely full-time YouTube back in like 2019, and it's just been my, like, once I paid off my student loans, I was like, alright, fuck this shit, I'm quitting and never going back to that ever again. How long was I a nurse? I was a nurse from 2013 till essentially 2019. Oh, so it was a solid period of time there, you know. Was it hard to start a podcast? I guess objectively speaking, the process is not like super hard. You just, I mean, you got to have something that people want to listen to, which is sometimes kind of guesswork, you know what I mean? And also for you to be like interested in, you know. But getting like decent equipment and like knowing how to edit audio, like it's a bit of a learning curve, but you'll learn it pretty fast, especially if your content's primarily audio or just simplistic. But obviously, you know, you probably would do better if you could put yourself on camera and all that kind of shit. But I got motivated by Mr. Nightmare. I was doing creepypastas and then Mr. Nightmare and a few others like B-Busta and Corpse and you know, Lazy Masquerade and various others like that. Your Maker, you know, back in the day, like they were doing the true scary story stuff, and I saw that they were having a lot of success with it. Or actually, I think I vaguely recall even King Spook. If you remember him, he was doing true scary story compilations and getting like banger views, you know. And you know that, you know, so seeing them, I was just like, well, this appears to be like a pretty popular niche. And then I tried it and I got like way more views than I did doing narrations and, you know, for creepypastas and things like that. So would I be your mentor? I mean, if you have any questions, you can just ask me here on the streams. It's probably the best way to do it, you know what I mean? I can just answer it in real time. Miss Corpse before the fans got weird. Yeah, what did the fans hurt Corpse? Or did they just like spend way too much time trying to find out what he looked like that it made him uncomfortable? Corpse's narration before he blew up. But yeah, I don't really blame Corpse for going and doing like other stuff, you know what I mean? If it means like more money and more popularity and he gets to like do his favorite thing, which at the time or now is like music, like that seems like the ideal way to go, you know? Corpse Bride, yeah, bring back Corpse. Yeah, I'm sure he's doing fine. He just, who knows? He might just like out of nowhere drop some like banger music, and like when things are like really, I mean, that would be probably the most ideal way to go about it, is just like make some good music, find a good time when it's like not, you know, like World War III outside or something like that, or some other stupid drama shit, and just drop some like, you know, content out of nowhere that like drums up all the old shit, and do it on Twitter and, you know, all the major platforms, and just like get a big influx of stuff. Thoughts on Mr. Ballin? Actually got recommended you after listening for a while now. I binge you both. Yeah, Mr. Ballin's awesome, man. He's a G. He's a hard-working son of a gun, and I appreciate him 1,000,000%. I started off with horror books, went through a dry spell of horror books, and found creepypastas, Reddit horror stories way later, 2021, 2022. Yeah, what kind of horror books were you reading? Oh wait, Corpse was in a video game recently? Narration? That's kind of crazy. Which one? Or not narration, but He still plays games with his streamer friends. Oh, okay, so he just kind of jumps in there with them. Was I actually a bad nurse? No, I was a good nurse. I was good because, I mean, like, being a nurse isn't that hard. I mean, everybody kind of, like, does their thing. You just have to be, like, not a bitch, you know what I mean? Like, as long as you're, like, nice to your patients and you have patience and you work well with others and you're, like, smart enough, you know what I mean? You're going to be fine. I think the worst nurses are the ones with the shitty attitudes. They're just, like, not fun to be around in general. Probably worse than, like, shitty doctors. But how do you record your vids? Yeah, so I have, like, a mic right here, the H4n Pro that I record into, and then, yeah, the Neumann mic below that for streaming. Do I watch the Creepcast? I haven't seen it, honestly. I think I've seen little bits and pieces, but like I said, I don't really watch, like, a lot of horror content to, like, really dig into people's stuff, but I'm sure it's great. What's up, Delia? He voice acted in a video game recently. It's called Post Trauma. Oh, shit. Wait, let's see. I feel like I know that one. Well, whoops. Not post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-trauma video game. Yeah, I think I've seen that. That's dope. Is it good? Is it like a first-person... Like, will you wander around or do you shoot people? H4n Pro, yep. It's like just a field recorder mic that you really shouldn't use for narration, but it kind of like simulates an ASMR feel, so it's just something I've always used and people seem to enjoy. When I tried to blink the moving trees away, I felt like a character in a goddamn cartoon or something, yet it was the only thing I could think of to try and stop it. But it didn't work. The movements didn't stop, and instead, they only got stranger. The tan oaks, which had been leaning at a slight angle, began to bend unnaturally, flexing on indiscernible joints as the great mass of foliage that they were connected with began to slowly descend. The trees then started to move again, rising and falling with a kind of quiet that didn't seem possible, and as they did, they dragged the amassed canopy above it with a sustained rustling that sounded like the trees themselves were whispering to one another. Then finally, in a moment of near madness, I realized what I was looking at. It wasn't 5 or 6 trees. It was one single living being, and they weren't tree trunks I was looking at. Tree skrunks. You watched You today, season 5, and definitely have a Joe Goldberg voices. Yeah, what's the deal with it? I saw like a trailer on Netflix. Has he convinced like 5 different chicks to be his girlfriend or something? But then he also kills them for fun. Joel said I have weak ankles when he was my nurse. Yeah, he also had a really weak bladder. He kept pissing the bed. It wasn't 5 or 6 trees. It was one single living thing, and they weren't tree trunks I was looking at moving quietly up and down. They were its legs. I remember the confusion and disorientation keeping me glued to the spot for I honestly don't know how long, but it couldn't have been more than a second or two. Then, as it clicked in my head that I was looking at a body and legs, I turned and ran as fast as my own could carry me. It was blind panic, the only time in my life I've ever truly experienced that kind of terror. This total, full-body sensation of, if I don't move fast enough, I'm going to die. But I also experienced the most profoundly intense adrenaline rush I have ever experienced. Running with a heavy pack through the forest was a brutal, exhausting grind. My pack had to be 40 or 50 pounds, with the straps digging into my shoulders and chafing with every step. The uneven ground messed with me too. Roots snagged at my feet, rocks shifted under my weight, and low branches whipped at my face. But I was so completely terrified of what I'd seen that I must have run half a mile before I even thought about stopping. My pack had never felt lighter. My legs were burning. My pack bounced in a way that threw me off of my rhythm every so often, which combined with the uneven ground meant that I took a couple nasty spills before scrambling to my feet and running again, through the trees, under branches, the world of blur of green. Son of a bitch. I can get seduced. Yeah, do you feel seduced by... What's his name? Joe Sheckelman? Anybody watching the show Human 2.0? No, what's that about? I should watch more shows. Oh, take care, Astrid. See you later. My legs were burning. My pack bounced in a way that threw me off my rhythm every so often, which combined with the uneven ground meant that I took a couple of nasty spills before scrambling to my feet and running again, through the trees, under branches, the world a blur of green and brown as the hurt slowly sank deeper into my legs. My calves started to cramp up, my lower back knotted up like someone was twisting a knife into it, but still I ran, and I didn't stop until my stomach started to heave as my chest heaved in. Joel Osteen, starring in You. I should read more books. Yeah, it's just like you have free time to do stuff, and it's like, okay, what do? Do you scroll on Instagram and look at funny memes for 10 hours? Do you go eat food? Do you play a video game? Do you work out? Do you plan on streaming post-trauma? You know, maybe I will. If it's like a puzzle game, honestly, maybe that'll be the next stream game that I do on here is post-trauma. Remind me every time I stream, so eventually it's unavoidable and I have to play it. It does sound cool. You jork the peanuts. Alright. I've seen a little bit of gameplay. It's like Resident Evil style game. Yeah, do you shoot in that game or just solve puzzles? Anyone play Oblivion Remaster? Yeah, I've been enjoying that a lot, honestly. Okay, Twisted. Yeah, Twisted would be a good word. My calves started to cramp up. My lower back knotted up like someone was twisting a knife into it. But still, I ran, and I didn't stop until my stomach started to twist as my chest heaved and my vision tunneled. Finally, after what seemed like much longer but was probably about 3 or 4 minutes, my body finally decided no more. My legs started to wobble, feeling heavier and heavier with each step before a feeling of nausea surged forward. I started to... Oops. Summer Babe with the 5. Thank you. Do I have a hobby? Yeah, I mean, I guess my hobbies just sort of include, like, just hanging out with friends. I mean, it's not really a hobby, I suppose, but... I mean, yeah, video games... I know some people say video games aren't a hobby, but, yeah, when I'm not hanging out with people or family or at the gym or doing something for the job of YouTube and shit or whatever... or scrolling for 9,000 hours a day on social media, I guess, yeah. I don't know. I do need more hobbies, I suppose. Something to just feel like I'm aiming for. Do you want to hear Corpse's voice part, or do you want to save it for the stream? I guess I'll just save it for the stream. Is it only a short part in the thing? Video games are hobbies. Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, it's something you do for entertainment. I feel like if playing a video game is a hobby, or if reading a book is a hobby and watching a movie is a hobby, then playing a video game would be that. Even though I would say like maybe the hobby of whittling wood to make a piece of wood look like an old Native American horse. I feel like that would probably be maybe more respectable, but at the same time, if you don't enjoy whittling wood to make it look like a Native American horse, then that's fine. Yeah, I don't give a shit. Joel, you know Pinocchio's paradox? They say you can't solve it, or rather Neil deGrasse Tyson says so. The answer is time is nose won't grow now, but it will because he originally lied. Am I right? I don't know what you said. I'm sorry. The hobby is procrastination. It's hard not to. I mean, like, when you got your phone, like, right there and your brain is just, like, essentially convinced to, like, pick it up every 2 seconds to, like, look for a message or look for a new meme. There's so many times when I have to, like, get on my phone to, like, send somebody something, like, for business, and then I get distracted by, like, the first thing that pops up, and then 5 minutes later I'm like, oh fuck, I was supposed to do that thing, damn it. You have 5 hobbies? What are those? What are your 5 hobbies? I find time to play pool. That's cool. Are you a pool shark? You're like Uncle Phil whenever he pulls out his stick and just like screws it together. What is it? That would be a good trivia thing. Is what is the name of Uncle Phil's pool stick from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? You don't know Uncle Phil, Mariba? How do you not know Uncle Phil? Your hobby is carnivorous plants. No, it's not weird. Have you ever met a rude YouTuber or celebrity? I mean, whenever I met, it was just very briefly in like LA. Tyler the Creator was not very nice. Like he was, but at the same time I kind of like snuck up on him. He just like was in a bit of a mood. But I think he's always kind of in a bad mood, I guess, you know. And who's the guy who plays Tobias in Arrested Development? I saw him in the airport, and he was on the phone, and I like stuck out my hand. I was like, "I love your shit," and he put the phone in his like the nook of his neck and like put his hand on it. I was like, "Oh, yeah, David Cross." So he was, he didn't get mad whenever I interrupted him in a really awkward way, but he just, they don't really make eye contact when they, do that and stuff. So I really shouldn't be. You actually met Tyler the Creator. I mean, it wasn't really like a meet kind of thing. I just like dabbed him up real quick or whatever, but it was just, it was clearly like I should not have been bothering a person in their home court, you know what I mean? But it's hard. You like see somebody and they're like a fucking rare Pokemon. You're just like, holy shit, that is a fucking thing that I've seen on the television I don't know how many goddamn times. I gotta like say something. Watch Mr. Show with Bob and David. I heard that's a good show. Jensen, welcome back for 58 months. This next time, wait for him to go to the bathroom and go for the handshake under the stall. Or if he's standing at a stall, yeah, go under between his legs. What's up, dude? I bet I felt his aura. Yeah, I mean, you can tell from like Tyler's like sort of interactions with media, like he's just not like I'm sure he's funny, and I'm sure he's friends with like I'm sure the people that he's friends with he has a good time with, but he's genuinely not very friendly with like the majority of fans or anything like that. And he's kind of a dick on social media, like everyone. He's just kind of a dick in general, and like I don't I don't really know why he gets away with it, I guess. Maybe because it's funny, which is fine. It's, you know, he wasn't a dick to me per se, but it was just kind of like all right, you know, kind of thing, which is fine because I'm a random person on the street. I could have had C4 strapped around my chest, which I did. I chose not to pull the drawstring. So he's lucky. He should consider himself lucky, honestly. JK. It's a bit rambunctious, that's true. He had a chance to meet DeFaro and Quana, but no one wanted to go to the mall with me. Who? Stop being a random person. I know. I need to get way more popular so I can meet other celebrities and do hard drugs together. Do I listen to other stories, scary story channels? No, I don't. Don't forget to say it in Minecraft ever so the feds won't be after. That's true. In Minecraft. Corpse took a step back from the spotlight when people tried to find his personal information and leak his face. Absolute weirdos. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Sucks. Sucks ass. I don't know. It's not nice. It's not a nice thing to do. Don't do it. Do you ever almost say something that is borderline incriminating and then rethink it because you're on a live stream? Well, I wouldn't say it's incriminating if you're being like sarcastic about something. I say a lot of like sarcastic sort of, you know, exaggerated humors or whatever. But it, you know, sometimes I do hold back because I have a very like, you know, the darkerest sense of humor you can possibly have, saying some pretty out of left field things, and I guess I hold it back because, you know, you don't want to like upset people or whatever. Corpse TWT is still thriving though. I check it. What is that? TWT. Question: have you ever had someone, although to be really unlikely, recognize you by your voice? I have not. No. Been fortunate. Hey Lottie, take care. So Joel, 10 hobbies actually. Those are your hobbies? List all of them. List your top 10 favorite hobbies. The fans? Oh yeah. What's up, Jess? How is it going? I overshare too much, and after a live stream I'd be here with my address and give hangouts, my bank details. Yeah, it's hard for me to hold that back once in a while. Are the only ones on Spotify from viewers on Reddit? The ones on Spotify, I mean, everything that's on Spotify is from YouTube initially. Top 10 spooky stories I fell asleep to this week. Number 1, the Jizzler. He was so tasty, dripping all of his crème. You should read Grimm's Fairy Tales or Silverstein. Oh, that'd be, yeah. I want to be parasocial. I don't know. I wouldn't mind just being normal social, you know what I mean? All of us could play play slam ball. That'd be sick. If all 400 of us were at a slam ball court and there were trampoline basketballs. And we're just fucking slamming shit, you know what I mean? Do you ever stuff your mouth with so much food that you can't even chew it? Oh yeah, almost every time. That's like my first bite is always that. During the 20-minute countdown, we started with spooky stories like you used to have at the end of the streams. Spooky stories they used to have at the end of the streams? What is those ones? Like creepypastas, or what do you mean? Finally, after what seemed like much longer but was only probably about 3 or 4 minutes, my body finally decided no more. My legs started to wobble, feeling heavier and heavier with each step before a feeling of nausea surged upward. I stumbled to a stop, hands on my knees, and began heaving until I puked. My head was spinning. Spit and vomit dangled from my mouth as I gasped for air. all with my pack still weighing down on me from above. The second my stomach felt empty and the retching stopped, I turned and saw that, except for the trees, the woods behind me were empty. The relief was intense, washing over me like a wave of calm, but I didn't quite relax until I'd made it all the way back to my car. I didn't see the people who let me... Oh yeah, actually that would be smart to like watch spooky videos before the stream starts, so like as everybody starts to wander in, we can be like, you know what I mean, it keeps their attention rather than me trying to be like interesting for the first 20 minutes. And then after we finish like a creepy video, we can go into narrator mode. What did I think of Corpses Among Us blow up back in 2020? Yeah, it was cool. It was like exactly what he needed, and I think it was perfect timing. Why did the newest video have no bird sounds at the end? We need the ending bird backs. I don't know. Some people were saying that it like triggers something in their mind that like wakes them back up. You know what I mean? Like say it's like the morning, and you hear like little sounds like that you know, you're used to the droning noise of my monotone voice, and then all of a sudden you hear birds, and it's sort of like you're like, oh fuck, it's morning. So you wake up, but it's only like 2 a.m. Do rain sounds. Actually, yeah, tomorrow's video is gonna have rain sounds in it. Rain oriented. Favorite scary documentary and Stephen King film? I don't know about documentary. Stephen King film, definitely Shining. Oh wait, that's not a Stephen King. Well, Stephen King related story film. Joe, you've been doing the birds for years. That's true. All it took was one loud minority person to make me crumble. I folded under no pressure, guys. You agree it wakes you up? Maybe do hoot owls instead. That's a good point, actually, maybe. Yeah. It was just like, it was an homage to like the, an homage. It was an homage to like the Evil Dead movie, like where in the morning the sun's coming up and the birds are chirping, and it's like you've survived the terror of the night, you know? But I realize it also would probably wake people up just naturally. Watch those videos at the beginning because I always enjoy the end of the stream. Spooky video top 10 or whatever montages. That'd be cool. Maybe I should just include like explosion sounds, bombs going off. Actually, that'd be kind of interesting if the background noise was just like distant World War I bombs. I feel like that'd be kind of chill to listen to a story like that. I didn't see the people who let me park in their driveway. It was almost 9 p.m. by the time I made it back, and I was in no mood to talk to anyone after walking for miles upon miles with my head on a swivel. I drove home in almost complete silence, just some talk radio to try and keep my mind off of what I'd just been through. Then after I got home and showered, I got to thinking, which quickly turned to drinking. I knew no one would believe a single goddamned word of what I'd seen, but that's not what bothered me. What truly frightened me was the idea that I was losing my mind, and that what I'd seen, or rather what I'd hallucinated, was a symptom of some serious and ever-worsening medical condition. I called my doctor's office from work the next day. My coworkers noticed I wasn't acting myself, but I assured them that I was just feeling a little under the weather, and that I'd already booked a doctor's appointment. A few days later, I'm sitting nervously in her office, and then when she asked me what the problem was, it took me much longer than I thought to finally just say, I think I'm seeing things. And my doctor was great. She very calmly asked what symptoms I'd been experiencing, and the way she took it all very seriously and professionally made me feel much more at ease. After I'd explained what I'd seen in those woods, she ran a few basic neurological tests and asked me about my sleeping habits, any meds that I was on, and my family's history of mental illness. I told her that I hadn't slept great in the woods that weekend, but generally I was doing okay. I also wasn't on any meds, and I had no family history of psychosis. I figured that she might refer me to a specialist, possibly, but instead, she basically told me I had nothing to worry about. I seemed fit and healthy, so it was most probably a one-off, with a possible combination of exhaustion and dehydration causing my mind to play tricks on me. Obviously, if it happened again, I was to report back to her so further action could be taken, but other than that, I should try not to worry about it. I guess hearing that nothing was wrong with me should have been a relief, and I know that I should have just chalked that up to a one-off mind trickery type thing. But I really couldn't, because hearing all that stuff didn't make what I'd seen feel any less real. I remember the weird hollow thunks as I approached, the unnatural stretching and twisting sound the trees made as they moved, and I remember how silently they were as they rose and fell, like they were moving gently and carefully, trying not to make a sound. It took me a few hours and I realized that I didn't feel reassured at all, because if I wasn't crazy, if I wasn't hallucinating, then what the fuck was that thing? Believe it or not, even as far as back as... Who's leaving? Oh, Justin's leaving? Oh, okay. See you, Justin. Do 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 do. Oh, Clifford, see you too, dude. Peace out. The FBI. What's up, FBI? It's such a funny name. Like, to have that name in that profile picture, I click on the profile and it's like 300 plus meter double collat in Call of Duty Warzone. And I was just imagining like the FBI's actual like YouTube channel just plays like Call of Duty Warzone and streams it. Duff Savage 15 with the 2 says, love your channel, keep it up, you're so calming. Thank you, Duff, appreciate you. Believe it or not, even as far back as 1997, I was able to get my hands on a computer with access to the internet. It wasn't much back then, but there were still some things like search engines, shout out to Alta Vista, and a bunch of online forums that I could kind of dig through to try and uncover information on what I'd experienced. There was the paranormal section of Delphi forums that proved somewhat useful, and what I found there was a great number of other people who'd endured strange and unexplainable events. RPGNet was also pretty useful, in that there was detailed articles on so-called cryptids that were, at least in part, based on real-world myths and legends. But without a doubt, it was a site called The Well that had the most luck. Shite. The Well. Kill a Mockingbird is banned in some schools. Yeah, why is Kill a Mockingbird banned? It's like the most boring book on the earth. They should ban Lord of the Rings, so that they actually ban a good book. And it upsets people. But without a doubt, it was a site called The Well that I had the most luck with. You had to pay a subscription fee to access the site, but that really elevated the quality of the content in that it attracted people you might affectionately call super nerds. The Well also had a dedicated cryptozoology forum, and it was a very serious place. Other forums, especially those dedicated to UFOs and the likes of Usenet, were mostly occupied by wackos claiming to have been anally probed. But those who frequented the Well seemed to employ a much more scientific approach. There were posts about Bigfoot and how, despite the theories on missing lynx-style bipedal apes crossing the Bering... Okay, I was not ready for all those words. Bering Land Bridge 10,000 years ago, their continued existence was biologically impossible. because the N-word, I think. Oh, well then they should ban Instagram. Are you friends with the narrators? Yeah, there's some narrators that keep in touch with. But it's not really as frequent as it used to be, I suppose, now that I'm kind of like more, I guess, self-sufficient in many ways. That's my goal. Any book that I don't feel like reading for school projects, I'm just going to get it banned. You'd think that, but it's not that. Oh, okay, well, what was it? Yeah, I'm going to get Lord of the Flies banned too. I remember back in the day, Lord of the Flies was the one book. There was like a website called Spark Notes in my like 10th grade English class. We had to read Lord of the Flies, and they had Spark Notes, and this was the only time that Spark Notes actually genuinely worked for like every chapter of Lord of the Flies that I had to read. And it was like accurate and it worked, and like, but then I remember like every other book I tried to use Spark Notes on, it just like was not accurate. Yeah, like Cliff Notes and stuff, but it was just like never, I don't know, it just like didn't match up with what I was like looking for, because I was lazy as shit and I didn't hate English class, I just like, they never made it fun. Like you just want to like creatively write stuff, you know, instead they make you read the most boring shit. I get it, you gotta read the classics and stuff, but at least let us, like, if you want us to read, make us read some, I don't know, video game magazines or something. You're definitely the guy in the group project along with the two other slackers who let the one person do everything. Not everything, I mean, I was the presenter. I got up there, I was fearless. I'd look the teacher in the eye and I'd spit on her. She would catch it in her mouth like real quick. It was weird. I was like, alright, never mind. We're not going to do that. That was my intimidation tactic to get an A. It didn't work. But no, yeah, I was pretty lazy. I do remember there was like, even in college, there was like this one statistics class that I took. And there was the one girl, Chelsea, and she just did everything and it was awesome. How do you feel about the kids have no respect for teachers in school these days? I don't think the kids ever had any respect for teachers. I mean, obviously they have to deal with the consequences and stuff. But if for some reason it got better or got worse, I guess, over time, I guess I wouldn't be too surprised about it. There were posts about Bigfoot and how, despite the theories on missing lynx-style bipedal apes crossing the Bering Land Bridge 10,000 years ago, their continued existence was biologically impossible. One user wrote that, at least theoretically, dense forests like those in the Pacific Northwest might be able to hide a small population of such mammals. But since there was no DNA or fossil evidence to support their supposed existence, most users agreed it was unlikely that any such creature existed. It was posts like that one which assured me that the Wells Cryptozoology Forum was legitimate, and then after hours of digging through their archives, I came across a post from a since-deleted account that sent chills running up my spine. Its author described the exact same phenomenon I had, almost to the letter, and said that he too had run terrified through the woods. The things hadn't chased him, they hadn't even seemed to acknowledge his presence, but the sight alone was enough to send him fleeing without so much as a second thought. He asked if anyone else had experienced such a thing, and while most of the comments were from users expressing awe or disbelief, only one struck a chord. A user claimed to have seen what he described as a huge stick insect type creature. Something which camouflaged itself as tree trunks and leaves and branches. It was like a myth, the user said. One that's a moth. Oh, okay. Anyone here ever seen the want to commit? Was it, anyone here ever just want to commit crimes because your steak got made well done instead of rare, medium rare? Yeah, that would suck. That sounds like pure hell. You loved your teachers. You were teacher pet. Same, dude. I would curl up on my teacher's desk and, on her lap and just chill there for hours. I'd purr. Happy May the 4th. What's your favorite movie from each trilogy? Let's see. First one. Yeah. I don't know. Empire Strikes Back was quite good. And then the first, then we get to the prequels, and we have, what do we have? We have the prequels, we have, so, the Phantom Menace, right. Then the Clone Wars, and then Revenge of the Sith. Honestly, the Clone Wars was pretty fun, because you were well into it, and I kind of like the war scenes, but the first one I really enjoyed just because it kind of established a lot of stuff, and kind of built into the world of Star Wars, but from a different timeline, just was interesting. And then the most recent trilogy, I only saw the first one, really, and I think I might have seen, I think I only saw the first one. No, I saw the first one and might have seen some of the second one, but it was just like dog shit, and I didn't care. And then I didn't see the third finale or whatever, and I just really haven't watched Star Wars since, because it's just dog poopy. Steak is definitely, you want it to be medium rare for sure. I do like it crispy on the outside, a little reverse sear. It's woke! Yeah, I don't know. I just think you're just always going to get like shitty products whenever you like centralize too much decision making. Well, or not really centralized, but like when you, like there needed to be, I think it really, really needed to be like J.J. Abrams from the very get-go writing and directing every one of the Star Wars trilogies of the more recent ones. Even if he wasn't the best, at least it would be consistent, whereas they like have all of these like various different directors for everything and writers. It just kind of like loses its, it loses focus very quick, and then you have a million different like producers getting their grimy fingers involved to make decisions. Yeah, I don't even know if I would describe the Star Wars movies as woke as much as just like complete, like written by a dummy and just not good. Can you do a Ouija board stories video? I've been dying since 2022. Yeah, maybe we can look into it for show. You like medium well? Really? Interesting. It was like a moth, the user said. One that's the color of tree bark. Something you don't even notice unless you're looking for it, or until it moves in front of you. Shit. David Fincher films? I have no idea. Can you list some? Rice or mashed potatoes? I guess it depends on the rice. I mean, I really do like jasmine rice with a lot of things. And honestly, mashed potatoes are kind of hit or miss sometimes, depending on who's making it. Like, you can make them really good, but if they're just like really generic, it's kind of forgettable. But I guess that's the same to be said about rice too. You burped in sync? Hell yeah, dude. You burped through me. Hello from Virginia, hello. Spaghetti or meat? Or balls? It was like a moth, the user said. One that's the color of tree bark, something you don't even notice unless you're looking for it, or until it moves in front of you. He very correctly stated that there are dozens of other examples of camouflage in nature, and that what we'd all seen was just as natural as a chameleon or a cuttlefish, only much, much bigger. I had to reach out. His comment was almost 6 months old, so I had no way of knowing if he still used that account or not, but still I wrote him an email and then received a reply just a few days later. He lived in San Francisco and invited me over to his apartment so we could discuss and compare what we'd seen. Joel, I'm Mexican. Our handmade BBQ, and by I mean grill on top of a bonfire. We have no control for the fire. Steak was always burned. Oh. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're cooking it that way. Wait, our handmade BBQ. Okay, just the grill on the bonfire. I feel like... Couldn't you just get like a Black & Decker stovetop grill or some shit out in the back porch? Do you have to put the grill always on a bonfire to cook your meats? I feel like you got options there in the modern age. Truffle butter. Oh, that sounds good. When's the cookout? You guys are all invited. We're going to Mon Blue's house and jumping over the bonfire as our steaks cook to a crisp. I lived in San Francisco and invited over... Oh wait, they met up. Holy shit. This is 1990s internet meetup. This shit's gonna get real. He lived in San Francisco and invited me over to his apartment so we could discuss and compare what we'd seen. The idea of getting to talk to someone about it who wouldn't think that I was crazy had a massive allure to it. And so one weekend I found myself driving up to San Francisco, checking into a motel, and then heading over to my contact's place the following afternoon. His emails were very well written, so I expected someone fairly normal, at least for cryptozoology. But I guess I was like a drowning man, and he was the only one to throw a rope, because when I met the guy, I realized that I made a huge mistake. He was unkempt, to put it kindly. Wild hair, stained vest, looked and smelled like he didn't shower much, and his apartment was just as repulsive. But I told myself that it could be worth it to talk to someone regarding what we'd each supposedly seen. Yet it only took a few minutes to realize the man wasn't nearly as reliable as I'd first assumed. I won't bore you with all the wacko stuff that he'd come up with, stuff he claimed was interconnected with... Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm just gonna be frisbee slinging medium rare steaks to everyone's mouth. Would you all fit in my backyard? You'd all fit in my lair, in my chambers. Ever post more stuff on my ASMR channel? Probably not, to be honest with you. I just don't have a lot of motivation to make more ASMR videos. I won't bore you with all the wacko stuff he came out with. Stuff he claimed was interconnected but sounded like the ramblings of a crazy person. But when he claimed that he could communicate with the giant stick insect which lived out in the woods and would let me see it again for a low, low price of just a few $1,000s, I realized that he wasn't just crazy, but he was trying to scam me too. And I was so goddamn furious that I don't think I could put anger into words. I actually considered just punching him in the face before storming out, but since I was obviously in this psycho's dark, dingy apartment, I knew that it was in my best interest to humor him with a forced thank you and then leave while I still had the chance. When I told him I had to leave, he said that he would swim. Oh man. Oh man. Man. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Man. When I told him I had to leave, he said that we should swap phone numbers, and I gave him a fake one. and then tried to hide my frustration as I wished him a good afternoon. Once the anger subsided, the disappointment was soul-destroying. I felt like an idiot having placed so much trust in someone like that, and as I continued on the drive back towards San Jose, I realized that I was in serious danger of letting the whole thing ruin my life. I took what I can only describe as a mental step back and imagined myself in 5, 10, or 20 years if I didn't find a way to make peace with what had happened. I saw myself as some complete obsessive hermit. Yeah, it's like Michael Vick had like dog fights in his basement. Basically, if you guys come over to the cookout, we're gonna have fan fights in the basement. It's basically gonna be Creator Clash 4. We're just gonna skip 3, but it's gonna be Fan Clash. Honestly, that would be kind of cool. Instead of the creators fighting, they have fans fight on their behest. Like all-star warriors representing each clan. Yes, Pradeep will watch and do like a thumbs down if he believes that you must have your neck sliced at the end for not performing well. I took what I can only describe as a mental step back and imagined myself in 5, 10, or 20 years if I didn't find a way to make peace with what had happened. I saw myself as some complete obsessive hermit living out in the woods, having given up on everything to try and prove I'm not crazy. I saw that thing in the forest eating up a lifetime of potential, turning my own mind into a courtroom where I was a defendant, prosecutor, and shaky eyewitness all at once. Out there in the realm of obsession and mystery, I saw no solid ground on which to stand. I pictured myself trying to tell someone, but only getting an eye roll or a smirk or a, "Yeah, sure, buddy." I pictured someone humoring me for a second before changing the subject, or worse, looking back at me like I'm one step away from a padded room. But that's where the frustration boils up. I've got this thing burning a hole into my memory, something I can't unsee, and because I cannot bring myself to lie, I cannot... Sad chat. Is everyone in the chat sad? Saddened by the news. The sadliest of chats. Sad place. Sad chat, sad place. Welcome to heck. You'll be now compensated for your time. Minimum wage. I've got this thing burning a hole into my memory, something I can't unsee, and because I cannot bring myself to lie, I continue to carry my burden. I have since managed to live somewhat of a normal life, but it can be maddening. Sometimes I feel like I'm trapped, stuck between what I experienced in a world that won't meet me halfway. I can't bring myself to let it go, but holding on to it feels like it's pulling me apart. The anxiety feeds the frustration, and the frustration amps up the anxiety, and round it goes until I'm not sure who I'm mad at. Bring dogs to a knife fight. That'd be kind of sick. Woe is me. If you're a real Let's Read fan, you all know his uploads are ASMR. TP the ears. This is true. It's going to give you that tingle in your Pringle. I can't bring myself to let it go, but holding on to it feels like it's pulling me apart. The anxiety feeds the frustration amps up the anxiety, and round it goes until I'm not even sure who I'm mad at anymore. The thing in the woods, the doubters, or my own rattled head. And now to come full circle, you understand why I have trouble sleeping at night, and why it's such a relief to be able to fall asleep naturally instead of having to rely on medication. It's been a long time since I've been able to consider myself at peace, but now, thanks to voices and channels like yours, I'll be able to treat a troubled mind. Do it. No. Alright. My nose whistled. YouTube put GIFs in the chat. Yeah, it seems like Twitch allows you to put like some crazy stuff in the chat, but I don't know. I guess as long as it doesn't get too wilding out. But now, thanks to voices and channels like yours, I'll be able to treat a troubled mind to a few moments of quiet. Alright, so we saw a thing in the woods, and then the rest was just like reflecting upon seeing it. Sounds good. That was my nose. No, that'd be funny. Wonder if anybody can whistle through their nose. Trust YouTube with GIFs. They allowed the Naravid to stay up too long. Dude, I don't even get that. Like, the stuff that YouTube allows because it's, like, educational, I'm like, is it because they jerk off to it? Like, what is that doing up? Like, someone at the way top's like, hold. Don't delete that one. Like, sir, it's a guy literally bent over shaving his naked asshole with his balls dangling goatsy style. Yes, but what if someone wants to know how to do that properly? Do you want them to go to a dangerous site such as teachmehow to shave my balls and nutsack.com? Or would you rather them come here and learn from a professional? It's true, it is a tutorial. It's Alan Tutorial. You saw a DIY gender reassignment surgery recommended? That was one of my videos. My old channel. Highlight treat, big fan, but I kind of need to stay anonymous for this one. You got it. Hi, let's read. Big fan, but I kind of need to stay anonymous for this one. I can't go into heavy detail, but I swear to God it's true, and any advice you guys got for me is hugely appreciated, because this thing is legit the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. So, my buddy and I'll just call him Bud, decided to hit up this camping spot up in New England last fall. You know, one of those little let's get away from it all weekends with campfires, cold beers, and wiener dogs and the whole deal. We picked this forest up. Wiener dogs. What's my scariest video? I don't know. I don't think any of them are scary. But still probably the Bigfoot video. You know, one of those let's get away from it all weekends with campfires, cold beer, hot dogs, the whole deal. We picked this forest up near the Vermont state line, someplace called Satan's Kingdom. Look it up if you don't believe me, craziest name for a state park ever. And the name sounded cool and spooky, so we were pumped as we packed up the Jeep with a cooler full of beers and dogs, and then some sleeping bags in a tent that was probably older than my grandmother. We figured that we'd hike into Satan's Kingdom, set up camp, and then just chill and get drunk by a fire for a night or two. Nothing too crazy, nothing too complicated. As it turns out, it ended up with being turns out, it's tough as a cartoon thing to drop alcohol on a bonfire and make a big fire. Well, last night I grabbed my friend's whiskey and poured some on a bonfire. That was epic. It was real. Don't do it. Oh yeah, you gotta be careful. Light yourself on fire. Pradeep versus 100 pieces of string. Is this one of those things where it's harmless name but something nightmarish when you watch? Wait, what are you talking about? What do I think of Dochi? I don't know, dude. You know all these, like, niche people that I'm, like, completely clueless of. Is it another rapper? The thing you'll soon learn about rappers is that they have, like, a lifespan within the entertainment realm of about, like, a year and a half, where they make, like, a couple of songs where they'll make, like, one or two songs where people say in the comments, like, they're the GOAT! They're the GOAT! The greatest of all crime! And then, like, within 6 months, nobody fucking remembers them and they've moved on to another batch. That's just, like, out of all the people in the industry, like, other than, like, ones that really stick around for a while, it just seems like there's so many rappers that come and go so quickly. BB Jean, thank you for the 5 gifters to Feather T, Kermit D. Fonz, John, Jen M, Tater Baby 67, and Brian Williams. Welcome, friends. This Pradeep Birdwatch, yeah, he'd be staring out the window. He'd be like, you were bad on Not Like Us, but listen to all of GNX as Soul. GNX, what is that? I'm so behind on all this shit, bro. I don't even know how I discovered, like, new music anymore. I used to, like, just, like, all of my fucking, like, teens and 20s, I was, like, pretty much establishing all the songs that I'd listen to for the rest of my life. And then at that point, I just never looked up another new song. GNX is Kendrick's new album. Oh, okay, you think I'd like it? Do you have conversations with Pradeep? As if you could respond? Sometimes. But I know his, like, patterns, and I know what he wants whenever he makes certain body language things, but it is kind of funny, like, just kind of, like, learning it over time. The Nervid. That's what Kendrick should do next. He should, or maybe that's something I could see Drake doing. Drake should make a Nervid and put that up on YouTube. That'll be his big comeback. Everyone, that should be like a trend. Kind of like the cold water plunge trend or whatever. Or like instead of like TikTok dances, we all do like YouTube shave our asshole on camera videos. It's the world's biggest educational movement ever. What can YouTube do? Why would they take that down? We're trying to teach everyone. Dude, my hamstrings are very tight. Turns out, it ended up with one of the most messed up nights of our whole lives. Day one was as near to perfect as it was possible to get. We found this sweet little clearing about a mile in, surrounded by these gnarly old pines that smelled like Christmas. And we set up the tent, got a fire crackling, and then spent the afternoon tossing a frisbee around like a couple of dorks and working up an appetite. When night rolled in, we got to roasting hot dogs and drinking beers, all while cracking jokes about how we'd totally survive a zombie apocalypse. Speaking of Pradeep, he's ripping the shit out of the couch. When night rolled in, we got to roasting hot dogs and drinking beers, all the while cracking jokes about how we'd totally survive a zombie apocalypse out there. And then day two happened, and things got weird. So it's late afternoon, sun's dipping down, and Bud's off grabbing firewood, and I'm messing with the campfire trying to look like I know what I'm doing. I'm in the process of learning that starting a campfire is much harder than it looks when suddenly I hear Bud start yelling. Real loud too, like he just saw a bear or something. I drop the stick that I'm poking the fire with and book it toward him. He comes crashing through the underbrush. His face is all pale, eyes bugging out, and holding his arms like it's about to holding his arm.
Mischievous dog.
LM, welcome to the butter. Suck, cold. No access to bonus content. Joel chews Pradeep's nails off, yeah. Come here a little bit, like squeezes little toe beans and the nails protract outward. I start gnawing on them. Devoid, what's up, dude? Starting a fire, the most complicated thing ever. I guess it would be if you didn't have any sort of... I've never done the whole, like, scratch shit together type thing. How have I been? I've been good. Honestly, just... Basically, life for me is just... surviving till my next snack. Like, no matter how much I get excited about, or, like, you know, got a thing going on or something to do, I'm like, well... I can't wait till I can eat again. What color are Pradeep's toe beans? Well, he's kind of... So he's, like, midnight black, right? And, like, medium length fur. But his toe beans are a little bit red, I suppose. Like, a little bit like of a darker raspberry red. Blackberry, maybe, even. You're eating right now? As you should be, Christy. What's the snack just like in my pantry? Not much, honestly. I don't really keep my place stocked very well, so I either go to the grocery store and like cook for the schmeat, or you know what I mean, like have stuff available to cook. But snack-wise, yeah, it's never like a lot of shit, because I know that I'll just like tear through it if the snacks are available. He comes crashing through the underbrush, face all pale, eyes bugging out, and holding his arm like it's about to fall off. I ask him if he's okay, and Bud says, "Bugs, man. This huge-ass bug just bit me, like monster movie huge." I figured that he had to be exaggerating. I mean, that's what people do, right? They do it every day. But then Bud shows me his forearm, and damn. There's this gigantic, nasty-looking red welt swelling up, with these two big puncture marks like tunnels into his skin that were oozing some kind of gross-looking fluid. As I looked at the wound, probably with a look of total horror on my face, Bud says, "It was as big as my fist, dude, with these freaky legs and wings, hurt like a son of a bitch." I've never seen him that rattled before. Bud was the same guy who once laughed off a wasp sting to the face at a barbecue. He wasn't some drama queen or insectophobe or anything like that. And so seeing that... So, seeing him that scared was, well, it scared me too, is what I guess I'm trying to say. We got him back to camp and I dug out the first aid kit, and thank God I remembered it, and slapped on some antiseptic on the bite before wrapping his arm with a bandage. Bud was wincing the whole time, muttering about how it stung like hell, and I said, "You'll be fine, dude. We'll probably just laugh about this later." He didn't laugh, though. He just sat there staring at the fire, looking all twitchy and nervous, and I figured by nightfall that he might perk up, but by the time the sun started going down, he'd gotten way, way worse. Even though it was getting kind of chilly, Bud was sweating buckets and he kept saying that he felt woozy. I was tossing logs on the fire trying to keep him warm, but he ended up huddled up in his sleeping bag, shivering one minute and then kicking it off the next. At one point he says, "Dude, I feel like crap," with his voice all raspy. And his arm looked worse too, swollen with red streaks creeping up from the bite, and you don't have to be a doctor to know that's not good. Around midnight, as Bud started dry heaving into the bushes, I say, "Screw this, we're going to the hospital." Bud's stubborn as a mule, so when I mention the hospital, he says, "No way, just take me home, dude. I'm not paying $1,000 to tell them that I just..." This story is kind of funny. Did it say that it was like tunneling through his skin, the bite? That sounds pretty... with like ooze coming out of it? Like, what the fuck, bro? Go to the goddamn hospital. Baker's rack overflowing with snacks. Damn, that sounds nice. I used to love going to my, like, some of my friends' houses. They would have just, like, their snack fucking selection in the cupboard was just, like, you just go there, and it was, like, shopping through the bakery section of, like, Walmart. It was just so nice. Yeah, Nurse Joel would suck out the ooze. Necrosis. Bud's stubborn as a mule, so when I mention the hospital, he says, "No way. Just take me home, dude. I'm not paying $1,000 for them to tell me that I have a fever. Just take me home." I told him whatever, that it was his decision, then we packed our stuff into my old beat-up Jeep and then started to head home. The drive back was a total nightmare, though. It was pitch black as we drove on winding roads through the woods. Bud stayed curled up in the passenger seat, groaning like he was dying. And I was blasting the heat, trying to keep him warm, but he was still shaking. And then about 20 minutes in, he sits up all of a sudden with a scared look on his face. He sounded desperate, and he says, "Pull over, man. I gotta go to the bathroom. Like now." I asked if he could hold it, but he was practically clawing at the door handle already, so I swerved under the shoulder and he bolted out before he even killed the engine. Before I even... Sugar-free snickerdoodles are a culinary crime. Sugar-free snickerdoodles are a culinary crime. Just imagine like a little elf man saying that. Sugar-free snickerdoodles are a culinary crime. He's talking to a news crew. They're there because they found out that one of Santa Claus's biggest rivals was using sugar-free ingredients to make snickerdoodles. You stomp him. And you just come out and crush his head in front of the camera. I asked if he could hold it, but he was practically clawing at the door handle already, so I swerved under the shoulder and he bolted out before I could even kill the engine. It's some random stretch of road, just trees on one side and this big dark field on the other. He staggers into the field, disappearing into the shadows, and I'm just sitting there, headlights cutting through the night, thinking how our weekend's gonna... Snickerdoodles. You fucking donkey! Snickerdoodles. Snickerdoodles. I don't even know what Gordon... I remember one time I kind of had a decent growling voice of Gordon Ramsay. You absolute swine. Snickerdoodle. Snickerdoodles. I can't do it. I'm echolocating, yeah. Trying to find Pradeep. He lays everywhere except where I want him to lay. Oh, I thought you were going to bed, Justin. Why are you staying up so late? Have you heard about the Steam coming to Xbox on the new Xbox? Thoughts about it? Oh. See, that's brilliant. I've said this for a few years, but I genuinely believe that Xbox needs to right the fuck now, and it sounds like they're doing that. Basically switch up their hardware as far as what an Xbox is to be sort of to basically be a PC, right? So just like sell people cheap, affordable, low to mid-range PCs that use, obviously Windows software, the Xbox like app, the integration of like maybe it's a little bit more streamlined, I don't know. But I genuinely just think that like the Xbox itself should just be a PC that just exists and connects to a television, uses something similar to like Steam's big mode or whatever it's called. And I don't know, like it would just be such a nice thing for like all users to be able to like have that integration. But maybe they think they're gonna like miss out on like people purchasing the game software by not keeping them exclusively within the Microsoft Store or something. I don't know. I would hope that, I guess Steam has its Steam machines. Didn't they have Steam machines at one point? And now they have the handheld thing. I don't know. Steam is really weird where it like gets these like sudden bursts of like genius ideas and then just like never really like continues with them or whatever. Yeah, the Steam Deck. I remember there was like a Steam thing where you could like stream your PC to a TV from another room, which was kind of cool. But I guess it's like only cool if you're playing fucking, what's it called? Rocket League. You're playing Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, that game is amazing, honestly, especially if you're playing with friends. In the future, we will have universal computing orbs made of liquid metal, and you insert crystals into it to run programs. Bet. Yeah, when does, didn't Microsoft already invent the whole quantum computing thing? And when do we get that? When can we play Crysis 4 on it? Do I still play Rocket League? No. I'll like randomly have friends ask me if I want to play, and I'll do it for a little bit, but I'm like basically at the same skill level I was back then, and I suck. But it is a fun little game, for a little bit. But then you see like the people who just like fly through the air and control their shit, and you're like, how do you even do that? I'm like tapping the boost button, aim directly into the air, and I cannot control my shit the same way you can. You have a gaming channel? No. I just sometimes stream games on this live stream from time to time. What's up, Dante? Oh yeah, okay, we're almost there. He staggers into the field, disappearing into the shadows, and I'm just sitting there, headlights cutting through the night, thinking how our weekend's gone to hell and how I'm now worried sick about Bud. And then out of nowhere, I hear a scream. Not like a whoops I tripped and fell kind of scream, but a full-on blood-curdling, fear-saturated shriek. I hear damn near. My heart damn near stops in my chest, and I'm out of the Jeep in a flash yelling, "Bud, what's wrong?" I'm about to run off into the field when I suddenly see him come limping back fast as he can, face white as a sheet, while his hands were smeared with red up to his wrists. And before I can say anything else, he just yells, "We gotta go, dude." Then as I got back into the driver's seat and him the passenger, he basically yells, "Hospital, now, go." I didn't ask any questions. I peeled out, tires squealing with my pulse thumping. I kept asking Bud what had happened, if he was okay, things like that. But he was just curled up, panting, shaking his head and alternating between telling me not to ask and begging me to get him to the hospital as quick as I could. He was terrified, like I'd never seen him before. Bud always seemed like the kind of guy who'd punch the bear before running away, and now he was a complete wreck. We hit the ER at this little hospital. Docs take one look at him at We hit the ER at this little hospital. Docs took one look at Bud and then whisked him off. I was stuck in the waiting room pacing, chugging terrible coffee from a machine while trying not to freak out, and about an hour later, a doctor came out asking me if Bud had been attacked or if he had memory gaps from the last day. I told him all I knew was that Bud was hit by a... I told him all I knew was that Bud had gotten bit by a bug, and that he'd been sick as hell and that I didn't know anything else. They let me see him long after... They let me see him not... Okay. They let me see him not long after. He was hooked up to an IV, looking pretty messed up, but he was alive. And doctors said it was some infection. Discharged him the next day with antibiotics, but he didn't want to talk about it. He just stared out the Jeep's window on the ride home and was completely quiet. Now, weeks eventually went by, and it took me a while, but I realized Bud was actually ducking me. He wouldn't text me back, wouldn't hang out, so finally I just cornered him in his place, asking, "Dude, what's up? You're freaking me out." And he looked bad, really bad, jumpy as hell with bags under his eyes, and then after I practically begged him to just talk to me, he invited me inside. It hadn't looked like he'd washed or cleaned his apartment in weeks, but I wasn't about to just leave. He then sat me down, made me swear not to tell a soul, and then in a voice barely above a whisper, he told me everything. He told me that back in the field, when he went off to go take a crap, it felt like it was going to be diarrhea at first, but then nothing came out right away, and it started to hurt really bad, like he was about to crap out a bowling ball. He was finally able to get it out, and he figured that it was just the bug bite messing him up. But when he turned around in the darkness, he saw that there was something moving at his feet, like whatever he had just come... Oh my god. He just shit out a fucking larvae, bro. A bowling ball bug. But when he turned around in the darkness, he saw that there was something moving at his feet. Like whatever had just come out of him, it was moving, squirming around in the grass. He then realized that there was blood all over the backs of his legs, which is why it was on his hands when he got back into the Jeep. And then once he saw all that blood, he freaked and ran. I sat there, jaw on the floor. What the hell, Bud? And he wouldn't look at me. He just kept going. I don't know what it was, dude, but it wasn't normal. I kept dreaming about it, seeing it crawl toward me, hearing it make those wet, clicking noises. I wake up screaming, and sometimes I feel like it's still inside me, waiting. And he was a mess. He wouldn't see a shrink and wouldn't go back to the hospital, and he said they'd either lock him up or cut him open and poke around his insides, and as much as I tried to reassure him, I didn't believe the words coming out of my own mouth. I honestly didn't know if everything he'd experienced was for real, or if his fever had resulted in him, I don't know, having some kind of vivid hallucination that he'd convinced himself was real. It was sort of like something stomach... Wet clicking noises. He needs some milk. It was like something terrible had happened inside of his body, or there was something happening inside of his mind. Either way, it seemed like a lose-lose. And I didn't know what to do, and I really still don't. Part of me still thinks that he just had an extreme reaction to that bug bite, one which made him very sick. But another part of me knows that he doesn't just say stuff like that unless he's 100% serious and certain. He's my best friend, and I'm terrified for him. But what scares me more is thinking about what bit him, the thing that's still out there in Satan's kingdom, and what he believes he left behind in the field that night, covered in his own blood. Alright, nice. Well, shit, guys. That was, let's just say, pretty freaking spooky, if you ask me. That'd be funny if there was a crypt keeper. Like a show with like a really serious, like terrifying, like spooky stories and stuff, anthology thing. And then the crypt keeper just has like a speech impediment. Well, guys, welcome back. Let's just say that was stomach churning. Anyways, the next story here we got is about the dude who gets raped by his grandpa. And it's not, well, let's just say it's not family friendly. Alright. Anyways, yeah, he's the mistress to Elvira. That'd be so amazing. She just dates like the world's biggest nerd. Alright, guys, well, this stuff is going to be bonus content. So, guys, thank you for... I saw some gifters throughout tonight. I think there was, what, 10 gifters or so, which I would like to match those right now to 10 lucky viewers coming at you as we speak. Boom. Welcome. That Guy Bishop, Sharon L, Pandora Heaven, the Aki Musa, El Donati, Antonio Gomez, Kyle Makar, Catherine B, What the Hex, Red Horizon, and Dylan Cook. Welcome, friends. You now have access to bonus content. Love you too. Appreciate you. No magnesium. Well, yeah, I guess I read the last story there and forgot to do all that. But, yeah. You guys rock. If you want to check out the bonus content, please do. It's, being a member over here or over on Patreon. There's a $5 tier, but that also gets you early access to all other audio for all new videos before they come out on YouTube. And then tomorrow's video is going to be a big compilation, but it's got rain sounds geared specifically for sleep. So I hope you enjoy that. It's going to be like 3 hours long. And then I'll be back streaming, I think, on Wednesday. So I hope to see you guys there. Be sure to follow the Twitch up above to be kept up to date when I go live, or over on my Instagram at letsread.official. But yeah, take care, guys, and yeah, I will see you in the future. Hope you have a great night wherever you are in the world. Great day. Love you, appreciate you. Treat yourself and others well, and be sure to hit the gym. All right. Bye-bye.